Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, everybody. What is up, dissidents one and all? This is the Do Dissidents podcast at a special weekend Friday night hour. Thank you guys for being here. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
So, you guys are still home watching YouTube on Friday nights. We usually don't do these shows on the weekend because we assume people go out, but I guess you're staying in with us. Well, thank you so much for doing that. I don't go out much anymore either. I don't know about you, Russell, but we're here.
It's Saturday night and I ain't got nobody. At least you got an excuse for having no plans. You're married.
That's true. Married with 2 children. I don't need no plans. Every day is chock full of plans for me. No question about that.
Yeah, my life is like fucking Kramer. You know, I just kind of get into misadventures and do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, right. Exactly. My monitor volume's a little low, but that's all right. I can live with it. You're hearing me okay, right?
I hear you fine.
Beautiful. All right. Perfect. Thank you to Platitude Platypus for kicking this party off in style with $11. Thank you so much. And I liked your screen name there too. So thank you very much. We want to thank everybody very much for being here last night. If you were here last night live, thank you very much. That was a great time. Interviewed the great Matt Taibbi on this show. That was a great honor for us. We had a lot of fun. That was
amazing.
Yeah, and it really went well. And so we appreciate everybody who showed up. And even to those who were not here live, the interview is getting a lot of play as a full-length piece up on the channel. So if you had a chance to watch it, thank you so much. And yeah, we encourage everybody to watch it. It really came out great. But that's why we're doing a show this evening. This isn't a full-length show, but we figured we would do a little extra something this evening because we had the interview last night, and there was a few things that happened that we obviously wanted to cover. But yeah, I think we made a good call getting a little Friday night stream together. What do you think, Russell? So far, it seems to be paying off. Tusker with $20.
Oh, snap! Look at Tusker, man.
Can't stay for the whole live show tonight, unfortunately. Take my money and everyone hit the like button. See, Tusker has plans. She's got a life. It's Friday night.
I guess
That's
she
why
wasn't kidding about that,
thing.
about opening that meth lab.
Yeah.
I thought she was kidding.
She's got to get out of here. She's got things to do. But thank you, Tusker. We appreciate that very much. We saw Virtuoso here last night. Virtuoso's here. Ryan here. Jezzy here. Where Pilgrim here. Splash of Socialism is here. Oh, that's Laura Hodge is here. Hey, Laura. Hey, everybody. Well, thank you guys very, very much for joining. We have a few segments.
I'm gonna surprise Keaton a little bit. I don't usually talk about this because I don't want to like exploit the situation. But today is the 5th anniversary of the passing away of my best friend, Joe Damiano. So I just want to give him a shout out wherever he is. I know he'd be laughing and he'd be loving this show.
Well, why don't you give him a little ring of the bowl?
Ring of the bowl, old friend. Steam of life, man. Steam of life. I know wherever he is, he's laughing.
All right. Well, we certainly hope so. Certainly hope so. All right, so we have a few segments that we got to get to tonight. It was a big week, you know, in addition to obviously getting to interview Matt Taibbi, there were a lot of things that we wanted to follow. There's a few segments that we're actually saving till Sunday because we do have a show in 2 days. So there's a couple things that we sort of left off the docket until Sunday. But we have a few things that obviously we feel we have to get to tonight, and a few things that we feel are very, very much worth talking about with you guys. One of them is related to a story that we were going to do last night because it has something to do with Jose Vega, who, for those of you who missed it, Jose is the star and subject of our first documentary film. We are filming a documentary on Jose, and that will be out. We hope to have that out and available in some form by probably late spring. So that's sort of a longer, more ambitious project, but something that we're very, very excited about. And we appreciate everybody's help in getting that made. We're going to create new Patreon tiers for those who help us out, behind the scenes footage, things like that. So you can support the show at patreon.com/do dissidents. We have a new sign up just a few minutes ago, actually, David H. So I will add you actually right now to the second patron scroll. But thank you, David, for signing up. We intend to post behind-the-scenes footage of the documentary, maybe some rough cuts, some rough edits, some bonus interviews, and things like that. So we hope to give patrons a sort of inside look at the making of the movie and perhaps even do some advanced screenings for them to get feedback and things like that. Maybe we'll focus group the film with some of our Patreon supporters. So all kinds of things we have in the works here. And when you sign up at patreon.com for as little as $5 a month, you help make it all happen. You can also go to dudissidents.substack.com and check us out over there. That helps very much also. So these patrons here on the scroll getting their due, getting their shout out for helping us make this show run. It's also what makes us able to do additional streams like this one. So this week, obviously, is a 3-stream week here because we have shows regularly Thursday nights and Sunday nights. And obviously, we're adding this special Friday night show. Probably clock in, my guess, be about a 90-minute job or something like that. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, we're not doing headlines tonight. We just have the 3 main segments. But once again, want to shout out all of the Patreon supporters who help make this happen. And obviously, a big shout out to Matt Taibbi. We've been posting clips of the Taibbi interview, so if you haven't caught the whole thing is available on YouTube. We're also going to be posting clips throughout the week. He was so good. He was so loose and fun and cool that there was just so much material that we can, use to sort of circulate out there in short form for people who don't have the attention span to watch the whole thing all the way through.
Yeah, we definitely. I thought we would get along. There's definitely a similar sense of humor. I read enough of his work that I thought we'd probably vibe.
Yeah, and we certainly did. He was cool.
He was great to give us so much of his time. I'm sure
his time.
He's very busy getting berated by Congress. And
berated by Congress, berated on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, he tweeted out the Twitter stream because we live stream to Twitter, everybody, just in case you didn't know. And he tweeted that stream out. So that stream alone got about 10,000 views. And then plus the YouTube and the Rumble. And so, it was a lot of fun. But anyway,
one day closer to not being able to walk around the street without risking getting punched in the mouth.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So that's what we're working towards here.
Yeah, that's what we're
the day I finally get punched on the subway, I'll know we made it.
Well, Russell's certainly working towards that because Russell lives in New York City. So Russell has to deal with some of you crazy kids. I live up in the woods with my family, so I don't get much FaceTime with the fans. But Russell, he is out there and he is on the streets. And so that's a risk he takes as we grow this project. Maybe he'll have to move up to the country as well.
Yeah.
We'll broadcast from a cabin in Vermont or something.
I'll come full circle back to Albany.
Right. Exactly.
That would be very strange.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's give this a shot here. This is a story that we touched upon slightly a couple of streams back. We were going to follow up with it last night, especially since it does involve, tangentially at least, our friend Jose Vega. But just to refresh everybody's memory, on March 20th, there was an event held in the Bronx that was co-hosted by AOC and Congressman Adriano Espaillat. A student services fair at the Renaissance High School auditorium. This was on March 20th, so this was a few days ago at this point. And since AOC obviously ran as a progressive, as a socialist, obviously, as, presumably anti-war voice, as you would say, she even spoke out in 2020 about opposing military recruitment events at public schools. High schools, right? And so here she is co-hosting this student services fair, and it says right here, join to learn about the resources available to students through our district office. We will be joined by special guests from the U.S. Naval Academy, the U.S. Air Force
You're
Academy.
reading that all wrong. U.S. Military Academy, U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, U.S. Coast Guard Academy, and the U.S. Department of Education.
Yeah, the Department of Education, right. As well as former congressional interns. And so this poster here went viral for a pretty good reason, right? A lot of progressives were quite upset that Congresswoman AOC was involved in hosting what seemed to be, at least in large part, a military recruiting event. Of course, they would never call it a military recruiting event on the poster, but you saw there, how many organizations are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of the 6 organizations named, 5 are military. Right. Exactly.
So, you have to be crazy to think this is a military recruitment event.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or you have to be lying, right? You have to be spreading disinformation to call this a military recruitment event. So she had a lot of people tweet their frustrations at her.
Or someone who hates people with uteruses.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. They had a lot of people tweet their frustrations at her, and there were also some protesters that apparently tried to make their way into the auditorium to make their disapproval known. More on that in a few minutes. But apparently the backlash to this event was strong enough for AOC to want to address it in an Instagram post or an Instagram story. I don't know Instagram. What is it, a post, a story? A reel. Facebook is a reel.
You can do no, Facebook, you have the stories. Instagram, it's a post or a reel. You can do a reel.
No, I think Instagram is a story. I'm pretty sure. I think Facebook is real. Instagram is story. Who cares? They're the same thing. They're owned by the same company.
No. Facebook is definitely story and Instagram is real.
Can we get a confirmation on that from the chat? I always thought it was an Instagram story. But anyway. That's not important. The most important part.
That's not the important part.
It's not the important
part. The important part is someone bring me a drink. God damn it.
Yeah, Where Pilgrim. Instagram has the stories. I mean, I'm positive it's an Instagram story. But they're both owned by Facebook. Don't
they have that now on Facebook? See, they migrated that to Facebook because now you have like the stories at the top of the page.
Well, Facebook owns Instagram, so it's possible to.
So yeah, no, that's why I got confused because they have it on Facebook now.
All right. I'll buy it. I'll give you a pass on that. I'll give you a pass on it.
What do the European judges say?
Right. So here's AOC posting on Instagram and Facebook, whatever it is, a reel, a story, was cross-posted on both platforms, addressing the backlash to her non-military recruitment events.
So crazy because people can just like wake up. Politics is so crazy because people can just like wake up and make up whatever they want to say about you, and it'll be totally false, and people will just
it's so crazy,
right?
People can like
so today,
get involved in your grassroots campaign, and then a couple of years later, you're sitting there with the hags on The View calling Nancy Pelosi mommy bear. It's just nuts.
And then people like get upset. People have like buyer's remorse about that. So crazy.
Someone made up a rumor that me was hosting a military recruitment fair for high schoolers. Now, like, does that sound like something I would do?
Ukraine budget request.
No shade to anybody, but just me. Does that sound like something I would do?
Yeah, it sounds like something that you would do and then try and gaslight your supporters when they challenge you for doing it. It does. Yeah, it sounds like something you would do. This also sounds like something you would do. You would take to Instagram and Facebook to try and bullshit your mostly idiotic supporters who you know will bend the knee and vote for you anyway and support you anyway because they're so invested in this project of a progressive takeover of the party that, your idiot supporters will just chalk this up to bad strategy, as they always do with AOC. And, she's got to learn. She's still young. She's getting the hang of it. Yeah, no, this sounds exactly like
she's getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
She's getting the hang of it. What did Pelosi make, $100 million? Wait until by the time she's done, she's gonna have that yacht with the dual helipad that Bezos has.
Well, isn't this like the what's the story about Rick James and Eddie Murphy with the shoes in the house on the mat?
Getting on the couch.
Does this sound like? Do I look like the kind of guy who would walk into Eddie Murphy's house and put my shoes on the couch? Of course, he did do that, but his first defense is, do I seem like the kind of guy who would do that?
Well, then, I mean, the joke of that was Rick James was so out there that right after he said that, he goes, "Yeah, I went."
Yeah, but because he got right. He realized that wasn't gonna fly, so he's like, "All right, fine, I'll cop to it. I gave it my best shot." That's like kind of what this is, except she's not gonna cop to it. She's gonna double and triple down as we go. Here we go.
No, then basic due diligence would mean ask a follow-up question, right? Like, just because someone is like said something on Twitter and posted a screenshot, like, ask the next step is not, I'm just going to believe that and share it. The next step is, let me ask a follow-up.
Well, people were posting about this on social media all day and all night. So, I mean, ask a follow-up question to who? Would they want you to call the high school? I'm sure that would have gone over real great, right? Yeah.
I mean, Jose tried to check it out for himself.
Yeah, we had protesters try to come in and see what was going on and voice their opinion and peacefully demonstrate there, and they weren't allowed in. So what do you mean? You ask a follow-up to who? To who? You saw the tweets, right? I mean, if you didn't see the tweets, you wouldn't be making this video. So you saw the tweets in advance of the fair. So if you wanted to clear that up beforehand,
right.
you could have. Right?
You know, if there's one thing AOC knows how to do, it's use Twitter.
Right. She knew
so
that
she
the
could
tweets
very
were coming
easily
in.
have answered, right?
Yeah,
sure.
She could have cleared this up beforehand and said, here, we encourage everybody in the area, come see for yourself that it's not a military recruitment fair. Although the problem with that is people would then maybe take her up on it and go and see that
and find out it's
it kind of was.
Right.
Fair, yeah, exactly. It's better to clear this up after the fact when possible.
Well, you got fog of war.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Next step is, let me ask a follow-up question, right? But that didn't happen today. So what did happen today? Well, a lot of people don't know that your member of Congress can extend a lot of opportunities to you, especially if you're in high school. And there are things, for example, did you know that there's a congressional art challenge that happens every year? And if your piece of art is selected by your member of Congress, you and your family fly to Washington. It gets hung up in the U.S. Capitol. It's a big deal if you want to apply to colleges and schools. There's also a congressional app challenge for high schoolers.
If you want to blow $250,000 on a worthless art program from a for-profit school and saddle yourself with debt for the rest of your life. Yeah, really important step to have your art hung in fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene's bathroom. Yeah. That's a big step. Well, we have to show up.
They're balancing that out with the app challenge where you go become a Silicon Valley goon.
Right, exactly.
As well, and if you can design an app, which Melissa right over here did and won, it's also
something
a really
screen
big deal.
out misinformation.
And you can have just like so much progress for college or any other opportunities as well. City Year, which is over there, provides a gap year. If you're not ready to go to college, you can spend a gap year in service. And so we held a student services fair to show all of the opportunities that are available to high school students. There were a small amount.
By the way, these edits are on the original post. It's a little sloppily edited. Yeah. Maybe we can intern for her and do some video editing. It's not just so you know, that's not us.
We can invent an app for damage control spin for members of Congress.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right.
Now that had to do with our U.S. service academies. Now, maybe you haven't heard of what a service academy is. Maybe you have. But maybe you've heard of institutions like West Point or Annapolis. And these are kind of like colleges, universities, military colleges, universities, except there is a requirement in my job. Part of my job just comes with the role is that you cannot apply to these schools without a nomination, a federal nomination from your member of Congress, your representative, your senator, the vice president of the United States, or the president of the United States. You cannot apply without that letter. And
all right. Now, according to a lot of people who I trust, that is not true. I don't claim to be an expert on this. Sabby Sabs, obviously, friend of the show over there on her channel and at RBN, she posted a tweet demonstrating that, in fact, an ROTC counselor or, junior ROTC official can write a letter of recommendation. It does not.
I would imagine, because that seems pretty onerous.
A congressperson. Yeah, of course. I mean, how could you, everybody who applies to these schools has to track down some federal elected official and get them to sign off on that? It's crazy.
Right. At minimum, a congressperson? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
These congress people are lazy as fuck. They wouldn't pass a law that requires that many people to get in touch with them.
Right, exactly. And I mean, what if there's a congressman who you hate or that hates you? I mean, come on.
Right.
It's crazy.
It makes no sense.
We have a responsibility to inform people of that process. And there were a couple tables there today to talk about that. Now, among all of these tables, and even that was like such a small fraction of all the tables and stuff that was there. We even had the Department of Education come in, representatives, to deliver a presentation on the changes to FAFSA that are coming up. In case you don't know, the FAFSA application process and some of those things are changing. And so people really need to know that. A lot of kids do their FAFSA on their own. I had filed my FAFSA by myself, and this is really important information to have. So, I mean, judge for yourself. Does this look like a recruitment fair to you?
Okay, well, I can only see like a narrow sliver of the room that you shot through your phone.
That you chose to show.
So
because I would imagine if there were 5 branches of the service represented there, there must be something you're not showing us.
Yeah.
Because
hey,
I
Russell.
don't see anyone in uniform, and those recruitment officers show up in uniform. They don't show up in plain clothes. So you are not showing that area. Yeah.
Does this look like a jail cell right now? Do I look like I'm in a prison cell? Because you can tell my entire surroundings from just looking at this backdrop I have in back of me. Does it look like I'm in prison?
No, not necessarily.
The Wi-Fi is pretty good, so I don't think I would be in prison. I would think prison Wi-Fi is probably a little worse.
Probably. Depends.
Right?
The warden probably has a dedicated cable.
Yeah.
No, but somebody started a rumor.
Okay, first of all, pause. I'm just going to go back for a second here to the poster. She claims that the military constituted a very small percentage of the vendors who were here.
Right.
So why do they take 5 out of 6 slots on the flyer? Like, why?
Not only that, if they're there, why aren't they in the picture? Like, clearly you're hiding where the military is. They're somewhere. Right? You have 5 branches of the service represented, and the service right now is kind of desperate. I think they're something like 10% under their recruitment goals.
Yeah. They're falling pretty far under. I don't know the exact number, but yeah, they're lagging.
So they're there, but you're not showing that to us. You're showing us specifically what you want us to see.
Yeah. All right. Now, here's where it gets even worse, because here is where she addresses the protesters that tried to come in. Now, keep in mind, she ran not only as a socialist, right? This isn't even so much about her left-wing politics, although that's certainly a part of it, but it's also she ran as this sort of movement candidate, a grassroots candidate who went door to door in wet shoes and knocked on doors and really ran as someone who was going to use her office the way an activist would and organize members of her district to fight for bottom-up change, right? I mean, that was the whole point. That's why Russell campaigned for her in 2018. That seemed to be the pitch. You know better than me. Am I wrong about that?
Oh yeah, no, the whole thing. I volunteered really early in her campaign. She was still bartending when I started volunteering for her. She still had that job. That's how broke she was. It was. I didn't really expect her to win, but it was one of those lost causes worth fighting. And hey, you never know. Maybe she'll win, right? And she won. But certainly, people. It's the same thing as with the Sanders thing. It's sad because they proved all the cynics right.
Right.
All the people who are like, what are you doing? I remember this guy. I've mentioned this on the air before. I'll never forget this guy. This dude with big white crazy hair and a denim jacket and jeans. I tried to get him to sign the petition. He goes, "Come to me when you're ready for a real revolution, motherfucker."
Right. Yeah. You mentioned that.
He knew what was up. He knew what was up.
Yep. He was right. All right, let's.
Everyone just believed it and accepted it. And the problem is when large accounts started to platform this, and then it starts spreading like wildfire. And it results in demands to cancel this event.
Okay, so pause. Once again, you have one of the largest accounts in the world. If you wanted to dispel this notion that this was a recruiting event in advance of the events to clear it up beforehand, you certainly could have done that. There's no doubt you knew that these questions were coming in. That's why you're doing the video now. You didn't learn about this after the fact.
Right.
So the idea, why were large accounts allowed to spread the idea that this was a military recruitment event based on the poster, which if you notice, I started to keep going back to this has her logo in the upper right-hand corner. So like she distributed this. This isn't something that somebody made and threw up online in order to put the emphasis on U.S. Naval Academy, U.S. Air Force. It's coming from her. Okay, so if you're going to call this, it's astounding to me that you would put this flyer up and then accuse people of spreading misinformation when they say this sounds like a recruitment event, since most of the organizations listed on the poster of the event are military.
Well, because it's
amazing.
It's easier for her to deny it after the fact than before. Of course, if she had denied it before, people could have been there with cameras just showing the military showing up.
Right.
But now that it's already happened, she can deny because how much evidence is there that she's lying?
And they obviously told Secret Service to be on the lookout for rabble-rousers who might cause a bad time. And by cause a bad time, once again, I mean peacefully demonstrate against the military. Which
is
what
their right in a theoretical democracy.
Exactly.
For me to not show up to it, which would almost be like canceling, it's canceling an appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And so for doing this today, I was really subject to a lot of really vile rhetoric and attacks all day to day
That's terrible.
because of a rumor. And I can't stress how much this is not just a right-wing thing.
Expressing their opinion?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Vile. Just vile. And then here she comes. This is not just a right-wing thing.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah.
Attacks all day to day because of a rumor. And I can't stress how much this is not just a right-wing thing. Social media algorithms incentivize conflict. They incentivize misinformation and disingenuous framing because a lie, as they say, a lie can go out the door and run around the world before the truth has the time to put on its shoes. And it really has an effect because these campaigns are usually targeted most towards candidates and officials of color and women and people who defend marginalized communities all the time. All the time.
Yeah. That's all.
And
That's
then,
all it's about.
even worse,
they are so sweet to Joe Biden. Everyone online is so sweet to quintessential out of touch white man Joe Biden.
Yeah, or a lot of out of touch GOPers as well, obviously. Right.
Yeah. No, it's. Look, that was one thing that concerned me about her from early on. She always liked to pull the woke language. She was always that way. Now it's all she's got, though, because she's abandoned her principles in the areas that people voted for her to be active in.
Right.
After some of these accounts started platforming and spreading this completely false claim, it circulated big. Like there was one account where 12,000 people liked it. And then it started to send strangers.
They're circulating the poster of the event that you put out. That's what they were circulating.
And expressing their opinion about it.
Right.
Almost like citizens in a democracy who didn't agree with your actions.
Right. I mean, if you didn't want this to look like a recruitment event, then maybe be dishonest even. Hey, how's this? Maybe be a little sleazy and only list one of the recruiting organizations and then list all these others that you claim were there.
Well, no. I mean, now she's deep down into the belly of the beast. The one hand washes the other politics. She's doing what she's supposed to do to help recruit for the military. And then, don't worry, we're going to get you next year with the appropriations bill. She's all the way into that game now.
Yep.
From outside of our community.
Okay, here we go. Now, this is when she mentions Jose Vega, basically.
Just this completely false claim. It circulated big. Like there was one account where 12,000 people liked it. And then it started to send strangers from outside of our community, completely not from the Bronx, to drive to this high school.
Where are they from?
And try
Kazakhstan?
to enter this high school with children.
Where are they
inside.
from? She says it like it's
because
so
people
threatening.
just decided that they wanted to repost something because an algorithm.
Amazing. With high school students inside, people from outside the Bronx.
Yeah.
Well, Jose lives in the Bronx. And look, there may have been other people who were not Jose, but I'm just using Jose Vega as an example.
I mean, they're Americans? They're
Yeah.
Americans?
Probably Americans.
So what do you mean by outside the community? Taiwan?
Well, it's just such a disgusting insinuation that protesters are a threat to safety.
They're other.
I mean, that just goes against everything you ran on. That goes against the spirit of your entire candidacy, that protesters, let's bring the ruckus on the Democratic Party, sitting inside Nancy Pelosi's office. All of a sudden now the protesters are somehow a threat because there's high school students in there. Like the protesters were to come in and cause some sort of problem. Seems like there are a lot of military guys in there. I don't think they'd have gotten too far if they tried to pull anything, right? But in any event, just the smear there that, because these ideas spread online, we had people, dangerous people, try and show up and get in the building. And if they did, there could have been an incident. It's just a horrendous thing to say.
Well, it's not to go too far afield. I'd like to do a segment on this at another time. Chris Rufo is probably going to be your education secretary if DeSantis becomes president. No, I'm serious as a heart attack. So, he's kind of been put in charge of this experiment that DeSantis is doing with unwoking the new college. And so Rufo is part of this redevelopment called a town hall, basically, with the students and the faculty and all this. And the woman who was still the dean, because there was some threat, right, tried to shut down the event. But clearly the purpose was just to gum up the works, right, to not allow the event. And she comes and confronts Rufo. Well, there's been a threat, and it's a threat to safety. And the children are here, and it's unsafe for them. And, Rufo said, no. We are not going to shut down the event simply because of a random threat. We have security here. We have protection. We're not shutting it down. And he did a video talking about this, saying, this is how you have to deal with these people because they invoke these ideas like safety in order to get their way. It's really not about safety. It's about forcing their political opponents into a corner where they can't fight back. So we need to stop listening to that and saying, no, we're going ahead anyway. And that's very much what she's doing here. That it's the same. It's classic propaganda, right? It's the people that you're trying to smear. She doesn't quite say what's wrong with them, but there's something wrong. There's something wrong. They're like rats, right? They're trying to get into the building. And if they get into the building, there's going to be danger to everyone's safety. She doesn't quite say why. She doesn't quite say who. That's classic propaganda technique.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's play. This is almost done.
Tickle this, part of our brain that wants to make us mad instead of make us pause and say, do I have the complete picture here? It leads to real safety issues. And I just think it's an opportunity for all of us to pause and take a breath because it's not all what it looks like sometimes.
Pause and take a breath and don't bother me. Okay. I'm doing my job. I have to, I have to be loyal to the military. I'm in Congress. That's what I get paid to do. My first loyalty is to the military and to the war machine. I'm allowed to come up here and tweet about Medicare for all, and I'm allowed to come up here and, talk about abolishing ICE. I could run my mouth and run my
things that
fingers.
We're never going to do,
Right, but at the end of the day, come on. This is the military. What am I supposed to do? Cancel on the military? I can't cancel on the military. So let's just take a breath.
Or make a
leave
big
me alone.
Or make a big stand
down.
about having a separate event for these things that I'm talking about that doesn't involve the military.
I mean, even in that case, I would just say, there's no excuse for her to be showing up there if she is, to remain at all loyal to the movement that put her there under any circumstance.
I'm saying, hey, why don't you take a stand? All these things you're talking about that Congress people can extend to high school students. Why don't you take a stand and say, I'm only going to do events like that don't involve the military?
Right, that don't involve the military. Right, exactly.
That's it. Do it separately.
All right, let's admit Virtuoso promised he was going to call in tonight, and it looks like he kept his word. He is on the line now. Virtuoso, what's up? How you doing?
So, Russ, what you're telling me is Davos is like an Amazon wish list for the elites?
It's like a what?
It's like an Amazon wish list. What's going on, guys?
It's something my eyes were really open to, partly by that. I mean, I was already aware of it, but Gira the Hardest really in Winners Take All. That that definitely expanded my understanding of the mechanics of it and how it works, the way they work through these institutions they fund, like Davos, but also others like the Aspen Institute, things that aren't as high profile that Anand Giridharadas is actually an alumni of. This is part of why he knows so much about this. So yeah, like we don't.
So
Go ahead.
Virtuoso, are you there? Did he get disconnected? All right, looks like he got. Looks like he's disconnected.
I said Aspen Institute. They got him.
They got him. Yeah, exactly. Virtuoso, if you
I
can still
shouldn't
hear
have
us.
said that with Virtuoso on the line.
Yeah, if you could still hear us, Virtuoso, you may want to exit and come back in because it looks like you got disconnected there. While we're waiting for you, though, I will take a few super chats here. Taya Smith with a super sticker for $10. Thank you, Taya. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Taya.
Very much. Splash of Socialism, Lara Hodge, our old friend from way back. Thank you for the $5, Lara. The disappointment AOC turned out to be makes me nervous about being elected to Congress. That's right. Lara was going to run for Congress in the Republican Party in a safe red district and try to run on a progressive platform against the Republican incumbent Andy Biggs, and she's considering another go at it, apparently. Once you're in, you belong to them. Truly terrifying. Yeah, no, it is. It is. I understand that. I sympathize with that.
I don't know, Laura. You know us. We know you. You know our takedowns. I think we'd keep you honest.
Yeah, perhaps.
You don't want to get on the
You'd
wrong
have the
end
due
of that.
dissidence check there. Axel, thanks for the $5, Axel. Who are you going to believe, your lying eyes or me? Or in this case, a narrow slice of video available on my phone that I took a screen grab from and then posted in this weird angle, like underneath the image.
Exactly. She really had to go out of her way to make sure. I mean, this also indicates to me that, like, if you just pan a little bit to the left, you got a bunch of bars and stars all over that room.
Virtuoso exited and came back. Are you there, bud?
Yeah, just had a connection issue.
All right.
So first off, I'd like to apologize on behalf of my congressional district, I think New York 13, for voting in this fucking Clintonite Adriana Esfigad.
Well, Russell's your district too.
We're in the same district, man.
Yeah. I listen. The moment I saw her with him, I'm thinking, oh no, this is it. This is it. Slowly but surely, she's gonna be one of them. And so, her trying to explain the whole situation is like, I don't know. Like, you ever walked into your girlfriend and you catch her cheating, and then she's trying to explain to you why she's not cheating? That's kind of like how I feel. Like, she's cherry picking an image of the stage. The only one that she chose.
It's like the old Eddie Murphy routine. Deny it.
Yeah.
Even if she has pictures, deny
it. Right. And then you have families there that basically told you that they had military recruiters in the hallway. But she didn't show that, of course, because, that would make her, intellectually dishonest, which is what she's being. Because, I don't understand how you're going to accuse people of being scandalous when you're the one that basically advertised this thing. And being an anti-war voice, you wouldn't be stuck like 10 miles with them. So why do it?
People were giving her shit about this days before. So she could have cleared this up in advance.
Right.
The idea that she waited, the fact that she waited until after the event already happened to say, oh, by the way, everyone who criticized me for this is either an amateur terrorist or a spreader of disinformation, that tells you everything you need to know. Tells you everything you need to know, because if she really wanted the event to go off successfully and not have protesters try to get in or not have people tweet angrily at her about it, she could have cleared it up beforehand. Of course, if you clear it up beforehand, you make an issue out of it and you encourage people to come and see for themselves what the event was all about. And it's pretty obvious she did not want that to happen, which is why she waited until after the fact.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And during the event,
she prove anything.
During the event, Adriana tweeted about it while she basically kept silent. That means she didn't want people to know about it, because she knows if they find out that she's a fraud.
I mean, you could be right about that. I don't follow any politicians on social media, really. I don't think I follow a single politician on Twitter. Like, not one. So I don't know what these people are posting. I probably should follow them just to keep up to date on what they're saying.
I've been trying to, but I just hate Twitter. I just hate the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Twitter now, but I should follow some of those accounts.
It's a bad scene, man. It's a bad scene over there. It's like it's like a bad acid trip of social media.
And the pro squad people, where are you guys? Where are you guys criticizing this move? This is, to me, this is just I don't know. It's embarrassing.
They got them all. They got them all. Man.
They're all paid ops, I guess. But
who? What did you say? The post squad?
The squad. Oh, they're done, man. They're all going along to get along. They're done. It's easier, right?
So, yeah. I mean, this is just shameful. I mean, when are people going to wake up?
They just you speak up too much, they start just coming up to you and going up to you. And they go,
yeah, I
Kennedy.
Oh God,
Kennedy.
I might be done voting after this because I just don't. I don't see what the point is if you're gonna have people that speak the language of revolution, but then play a different ball game when nobody's looking. Okay, fine. I guess I'll just devote my attention to things that affect people, personally, like food, any food shortages, anything that relates to like mutual aid. I think that's more impactful to a community than going around fucking door to door, telling people to vote for somebody who's not going to give a shit about you once they get into office.
Well, I mean, that's why we're pretty much done with that. We're not doing it. We really want to start to have a regular segment of causes we can get behind, and we're already redeveloping our website to have a permanent tab that will have causes that people can donate to other than political campaigns like that. That's pretty much where we are now. Outside power, outside movements, grassroots mutual support.
Right. Yeah, I think if anyone on the group that pretty much has a link to that, I'll definitely check it out.
We are redoing our website with Jacob's help here.
Yeah.
Jacob is helping us redo our website, by the way. Shout out to Jacob. Thank you. And
Thank
we
you,
are
Jacob.
putting like a mutual aid page on the website with donate links and things like that. So yeah, we will be putting that together. That should be published end of next week, I would think. We're not far off.
Yeah, because I'm just frankly tired of giving money to campaigns. I just think it's like marketized, activism.
Fuck that shit, man.
Yeah, no, it's horrible.
Russell,
can you
I just wanted to call in
You're coming in a little low for me.
For me?
I don't know. Apparently not for the audience, but for me, I can't hear you that well.
Oh,
all right.
There you go, much better.
So guys, I just wanted to call in and just talk my shit, about this.
No, you're always welcome to.
Pitiful.
All right, brother.
Disgraceful, man. Well, guys, have a good weekend. Safe travels, man. Peace, man.
All righty. We'll see you Sunday.
You too, man.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. All right. That's Virtuoso, everybody. A regular caller. Patreon members have call-in access to this program, by the way. So Virtuoso is a Patreon member. Members at Patreon and paid Substack subscribers have call-in access to the show. We're going to move on to segment number 2 in just a moment. Let's knock out a couple more of these. Christian, thanks for the $10, my friend. That sure is a long video for AOC to say this didn't happen. She sounds like Maddow spending 15 minutes explaining a 5-minute story. She went on longer. I mean, it was like a 10-minute video. She just kept harping on the insistence that this was not a military recruitment event. And
there's more of that video?
No, there's way more. There's like another 5 minutes. I mean, we're not going to watch 10 minutes of it. I only cut the first 5 minutes. But yeah, there's more. So she goes on at length. It gets very repetitive, so I didn't feel a need to play the whole thing.
That's methinks thou dost protest too much.
Yep, indeed. Red Z, come on, dopamine, one hit for $2. All right. Well, thanks, Red Z. Appreciate that. All right, let's go to another story. This is a story that has, of course, been making the rounds all week. This really made a big splash. I saw this tweet like 3 minutes after it was posted, and there was no doubt in my mind that this was going to be the talk of left Twitter and much of left media for quite a few days.
And the death of our post-Taibbi subscriber gains.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, we'll see about that. I'm not as sure of that as you are. But Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks tweets out on March 22nd, "I'm a woman." Oh boy.
Yeah.
You don't want to go out on a limb and say that.
She's taking a brave stand. She is actually given the space that they're in.
Yeah. That is a bold thing to say. I'm a woman. Please don't ever refer to me as a person with a uterus, a birthing person, or a person who menstruates. How do people not realize how degrading this is? You can support the transgender community without doing this shit. And as you can see, 26 million views, 123,000 likes, 14,000 retweets. Wow. Oh, yeah, no, this really made it out there. All right, so we're going to break down a few different responses from a few prominent indie progressive media personalities, starting with Mike Figueredo at the Humanist Report, prefacing it with, I respect you a lot, but this notion that the mere existence of trans-inclusive terms rarely used in casual convos somehow degrades women comes right out of the right's anti-trans war on women playbook. There's a reason why they're praising you for this. The way the right justifies trans eradication is to monopolize discourse and pretends trans liberation is actually a war on women. They called gay marriage a war on marriage not that long ago. It's the oldest trick in the book. Please don't assist them with that narrative. Yep. And then where the hell are her responses? Why doesn't Elon fix this?
That's exactly the same.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, you're a guy who has no clue what it's like to have your reproductive freedom taken away, but consider what it's like to have the same lawmakers who failed to protect our rights turn around and call us people with uteruses. It's not inclusive if cis women hate it. And Mike says, how many people are actually referring to you using this language? It must be a lot for you to air this grievance in the middle of an international hate crusade against trans people. I'm sure Ben Shapiro is retweeting you because he supports your reproductive freedom, though. And then she goes on. Now, there was a
careful there. You might fall out of good standing with the people whose butts you lick.
Well, you know, there was a time not too long ago where Mike Figueredo could get canceled for mansplaining in this exchange. Yeah, I guess mansplaining is not a thing anymore, right? No, I guess that's old.
Well, not it depends. I mean, that's the intersectionality thing. It's about the whole web of who's more oppressed in the situation. So as long as he's saying this in defense of trans people who are considered, you know, way towards the bottom of the oppression hierarchy, which is the top in this cosmology, then you can get away with pretty much anything.
I guess you're right. Because it seems like times have changed quite a bit, but I just love this response. I respect you a lot. This notion that the mere existence of trans-inclusive terms somehow degrades women comes right out of the right's anti-trans war. What did she say? She said, I'm a woman. Please don't refer to me as a person with a uterus, a birthing person, or a person who menstruates. That's all she said. A lot of the responses to this have just been a projection of how they interpret what she said, which, if you notice, a lot of the discourse around this issue is just that. People have recommended the ContraPoints video to us, the video that ContraPoints did on J.K. Rowling.
Yes.
And there's literally a graphic in that video where they show overt bigotry and then something like, coded bigotry. And one of the, phrases under coded bigotry is, free speech, meaning when people invoke free speech, that's a form of coded bigotry because they're really using free speech to hide their desire to express hate speech, right? So much of this is just based on, I would argue, cynically and deliberately misinterpreting what people say. What Anna said there was quite simple. Something extremely non-controversial. It strikes me, it could be that Anna Kasparian is something that used to exist quite plentifully in woke circles. This is a word you don't hear too much anymore. Feminist. Perhaps she's a feminist. Remember that word? Remember when the wokesters were all about that word? It was fashionable to be a feminist in 2016, right? With the pussy hats and the Hillary Clinton and the Women's March. Perfectly in fashion. You don't really hear the word feminist much anymore. Because is feminist now a gender-exclusive term or whatever the hell he was saying there? Right? It's just this bizarre
goddamn
changing of the conversation where all of the sudden, to express something very, very fundamental and foundational.
I'm working on my new toy, turf balls. You're gonna
is controversial.
Shoot J.K. Rowling books at people.
I mean, just wild. Just absolutely wild. That was just one. We have two more. Do you have anything to say about Mike Figueredo's comment there?
Well, I do.
Well, let's keep going then with a few more of these things.
Yeah, before I go full monochrome on this.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we have two more takes. Here's Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report weighing in, and the title of this video, by the way, was Anna Kasparian is not anti-trans, because Emma disagrees with her on this, but you know they're old pals from the TYT days, so I guess she wanted to make it known that she didn't think Anna was acting out of malice, but she just disagrees with her emphasis here. Here we go.
I think it's wrong to overinflate the usage of kind of awkward language like birthing person, both in frequency and in terms of the stakes involved when someone is referred to by that language, because it's awkward. I get it. It's stilted when being used in non-medical or technical terms, but I think that's like kind of the extent of the critique, right? It's awkward. It doesn't take away anyone's rights, and it's not in when being used right now in that
Okay, neither does asking to be called a woman. Asking to be called a woman does not take away anyone's rights either. That's the point of this, that they're not getting, because they are just trained to interpret every invocation of gender that does not contort itself to sort of accommodate, this new language that's just being built, piece by piece, excuse me, as somehow an affront to people's rights. Again, her tweet was very, very simple.
Well, this is what's completely dishonest about what she's saying. This is an entire movement that takes discourse theory as a given. The premise that our power dynamics are in part or in whole constructed by the language we use to describe things. That is why there is this obsession with language and language policing. So you are defending the use of a term that has only arisen because of the core premise that language matters, by saying language doesn't matter. If language doesn't matter, then why are we using that term? If it's so deeply offensive, the only reason that term would have even been developed is because these people who use it have the core assumption that language is intrinsic to our entire perception and experience of reality. So if it's that fucking important, then how can you say, well, what's the big deal? You're saying you think it's a big deal just by using that term.
Exactly.
Context, it's not taking away anyone's rights. And like, as a cis woman myself, I just think it's more important to put into context that, like, while you might not enjoy the technical language, that awkwardness is inevitable in this current climate and necessary, because we're trying to like fortify walls right now as trans erasure.
Okay, you know who else is trying to fortify walls? Women. Yeah. Women have been trying to fortify walls for thousands of years. Women have been subjugated precisely because, or I shouldn't say precisely because this is one of many factors, but it's certainly a big factor, because they're birthing people. Because women get pregnant and give birth and have to stay home and nurture the child. I mean, like I said, this goes back thousands of years. Women are not able to go out into the world and conquer it the way men are, because they're birthing people, right? So being a birthing person is part of being a woman. It's not the whole part of being a woman. There are women like Anna who speaks very openly about not wanting to have kids, right? But that's another reason she might not want to be called a birthing person, right? So women have been in a thousands years, a multi-millennial struggle for equality themselves, right? So trans men or trans women, sure, of course, obviously, it ought to go without saying, but I won't take anything for granted on a show like this. Obviously, they deserve full rights and all of that, right? And obviously, they should fight for justice when justice is being denied to them. Obviously, like I said, goes without saying. Women have their own struggle too, and they've had it for thousands of years here. And they've been fighting it. So the idea that we have to all of a sudden just rewrite the entire language to provide carve-outs for all of these new ideas that are coming and like I said, sort of just making this up as we go along. I mean, come on. And that's where, there is a real blind spot here in this movement. They get accused very often of being dismissive of women's struggles. I mean, Mike Figueredo, you have a progressive man on Twitter lecturing a woman about how she wants to be spoken to.
Well,
since when was that okay? By any standards, especially not by these woke standards.
Well, and there's nowhere that you see that more than in the insistence that biological men participate in women's sports, especially at the collegiate level, where it's costing these and the high school level, where it's costing these girls the opportunities for scholarships. Right? These girls have trained their entire lives, and now you're making them compete against opponents who have a clear advantage over them. You're never look. They've asked this question all kinds of ways, not the Daily Wire, like people who are in favor of having trans athletes. They've asked it every way they can to try to get a better response. 90% of the public disagrees with it. So you see these people talk about this like it's a self-evident right that only bigots are against. Really? You think that's the snobbery of the left? You really think 90% of the people are right-wing bigots? 90%?
Right.
Really? Right. Like, doesn't that when 90% come back? Look, when I'm in a position, I've run a lot of theaters and I've run a lot of theater companies. Sometimes you are right on your own and people don't see something that you see. But for the most part, my rule of thumb, I always try to surround myself with strong people and encourage them to speak their minds. And, if the majority were against me, I would usually change my mind. Because I would say, man, I'm probably wrong. If this many people with this many diverse points of view think I'm wrong, there's probably something I'm missing here. Let me take a step back. Let me check myself before I wreck myself here. When 90% of the people are against you, you don't feel like, and they do have an answer for that. Well, at one time, slavery was the majority opinion, right? They always have an answer.
All right, here we go.
Is widespread right now. Like there's a barrage of deliberately trans exclusionary language, which is what some of the awkward, stilted terminology is meaning to beat back. And that trans exclusionary language is really just the tip of the iceberg for systemic erasure. So being diligent about combating that, that's at the forefront of my mind.
What about erasing women? Do you know one of the reasons they have to make this argument? They have to make the argument, and I keep getting this. I don't know if you look in the comment section whenever we get into this. They'll say, no one's actually saying that trans women are literally women. So what does trans women or women mean? What does that mean? What do you mean by that? If you're not saying that, then what exactly are you saying? They have to say that because as soon as they concede, and I haven't had anyone who could answer this. Everybody who told me that, we're not claiming that. I say, well, so why are you mad at Rowling? Why are you mad at J.K. Rowling? Rowling is saying that there is a difference, which you're now conceding. And she's saying that difference has implications about sharing spaces, right? It has implications for women in prison. It has implication for women in rape crisis centers. It has implications for women in athletics and changing rooms. If you're conceding the difference, then how can you be mad at somebody who's trying to work out what those differences imply in terms of certain accommodations? Now, if you're going to argue, no, there should be no distinction made, it should all be about how you identify, then you have to make the completely irrational claim that these things are the same. They are clearly not the same.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that basically says what I had to say about this. Brianna Joy Gray gets into it again. This kind of jumps the shark to the point where I almost have to make a different point about this. But yes, look, it is safe to assume in a society, it is safe to assume that 99.99999% of people giving birth are women and identify as such. And so when you change clinical language to, like I said, accommodate for the 0.0001% of birthing people who are not women, who do not identify as women, that feels to many women, especially a lot of feminists who are very attached to the experience of being a woman in a way that they feel motivates them politically, that feels like an erasure of their experience.
Right.
And women are 47% of the population, not 0.06% of the population. So that doesn't compute. All right. That touches a little bit on what Brianna Joy Gray says in this clip. But like I said, this goes so far out there that there's a different point that has to be made here. And then we do have a guest on the line who I want to admit, because this is kind of in her wheelhouse. But let's go to Brianna Joy Gray on the Rising, yucking it up. I still don't have a good figure to compare Robbie Suave to. I'm still working on that. But
you'll find it.
I'll find it. I don't have it. I keep saying I got to prep that, and I never do.
I saw somebody say, just like Taibbi coined vampire squid, you have coined raisin-faced Medusa.
I'm thinking he looks almost like a low T Johnny Bravo, like a Johnny Bravo with low testosterone. When he gets a little older. That's kind of the closest I have to him, but that's not quite great. I'm workshopping it. I'm workshopping it. I'm working on it.
Taya like that.
Deeply hypocritical, because there are women who are saying, I want to fight for the right to be referred to by my chosen name, not my dead name.
Sorry, but that's not bad. Low T Johnny Bravo, right? Robbie Suave.
Yeah.
Like if Johnny Bravo lost all his muscle mass,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That's kind of what it looks like. All right. Anyway, sorry. Let me go back. I'll stop. Forgive me.
This is deeply hypocritical, because there are women who are saying, I want to fight for the right to be referred to by my chosen name, not my dead name, to be called, to have use terms like cis and trans, to use terms like birthing woman, because I am someone who maybe is a cis woman, but postmenopausal or pre-menstruation, or
where are these women?
There are words that are invented.
Where are these women?
Cover
Can you show
real
me
people
one?
who exist, including people who no longer identify as women.
You show me
but who
a
can
menopausal
biologically
woman
give
who
birth
wants to
because
be
they were born.
referred to that way. You show me that. You show me that.
No longer identify as women, we call them trans men.
Right.
We have this all worked out.
And sometimes, I'm sorry, this is like so niche that it's ridiculous that this is such a big part of the national conversation, but sometimes trans men get pregnant and they prefer to be called birthing women. And I don't, when someone like Anna Kasparian tweets something like this, it is not just what her personal preference is. It implicates whether or not the birthing person, the trans man who is giving birth, has the right to want to be called that. Yes, a clinical term in a clinical setting like the hospital where he's trying to give birth.
She didn't say, don't call the trans man who wants to be called that. She said, don't call me that. Specifically. Right. Don't call me that.
And don't change the default descriptor to person with a uterus or birthing person. Look, I just have to say.
And are you actually going to honestly argue that trans activists are not out there trying to make that change? Really? Because I could show you 10,000 TikTok videos of these fucking psychos trying to make that change.
Brianna Joy Gray, about a week or two ago, whenever it was, got very frustrated. I'm not just saying this because Matt was on the show last night. She got very frustrated with Matt Taibbi when he told her that the left was no threat to institutional power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she got very indignant about that, very upset about that. And yet, a week and a half later, here she is saying this. What a ridiculous conversation
are you saying
to be having for someone who claims that her faction is somehow a threat to the establishment. This is a joke. I mean, this is absolute insanity. absolute insanity that you're having this conversation for days and days over a tweet that simply says, I'm a woman. I don't appreciate this people with uterus thing. It's too clinical. Yes, it's clinical. That's the point. That's the point. And no, they don't use it in everyday terms, right? People don't call up, it's not the people with uteruses restroom. It's the women's restroom, right? Okay, granted, obviously. But when you start introducing this language that, yes, I'm sorry, it does erase the experience of womanhood, which, again, up until, I'm sorry, like 2017 was pretty foundational to the woke experience in general, right? I mean, not even the liberal experience, but I mean, being a feminist meant being woke, right? I mean, that was the vanguard of wokeism until very, very short time ago. And now you have the co-host of one of the most popular, at least in theory, progressive YouTube shows, comes out and says something as simple as that, and it's days-long backlash, and now you're here on this rant about, well, what about there are pregnant men? It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, they don't want to be called a woman. They want to be called a birthing person. Well, I'm sure in that specific case, they would be called a birthing person, right? If a trans man is pregnant at a hospital, of course, they're not going to be referred to as a woman. They're going to be referred to as perhaps a trans man or a birthing person, right? They'll pick one of those two. But obviously, those are the exceptions. And doctors are equipped to notice when there is an exception to a norm, and they will adjust their language accordingly. You don't need to change the blanket term to define all pregnant people as pregnant people or birthing people.
Well, okay. This is what I really think is going on here, because if you just take a step back, von Clausewitz, there are no contradictions. When you think you found a contradiction, check your premises. It doesn't make any sense that we're living in the second Gilded Age, and this is the cause consuming a good portion of the left. It doesn't make any sense. But if you go by Van Clausewitz edict, it makes sense. If you think it doesn't make sense, your premises are wrong. So, okay, so how did this happen? How did we get here? My personal belief is it's a combination of elements. I do not think we would be here if the Supreme Court had not legalized gay marriage. Gay marriage was a LGBTQ issue for NGOs to fundraise a lot of money off of, and for Democratic politicians to run on. As gay marriage and general acceptance of the LGBT community swept the nation very quickly, and the numbers of approval of gay lifestyles and gay marriage very quickly became a sizable majority of the U.S. population. What do you think these not-for-profits, where a lot of the CEOs are making pretty good money, a lot of the staff are making pretty good money, you think they were just going to pack up and go home? You know, it's a lot more complicated to fundraise off of homeless gay teens, right? It's gay marriage. It was a focus. They had to come up with something. They had to come up with something that was so niche and so divisive that they could fundraise off it indefinitely. I think that's one part of it. I think another part of it is you have a whole media complex that is built around conflict. So they also had an interest in pumping up an extremely divisive, conflict-oriented issue. And I think the third component of this is corporate America fucking loves this. Oh my God, a left fighting over bathrooms instead of class and wages. Now you're going to say, no, well, people on the other side, no, this is about human rights. This is about, do you know how many trans people commit suicide? Do you know how many people who grew up in the bottom fifth of the income distribution commit suicide? You have a 70% higher chance of committing suicide if you grow up poor.
Right.
So why aren't we talking about that? Because you've been brainwashed. You've been brainwashed into directing your core idealism in a direction that doesn't actually threaten power. And something else that always strikes me, because I've been around long enough to make this observation. Listen, A lot of these people who jump up the most to defend these ideas and these causes, you motherfuckers are the same exact people who were anti-gay rights when I was for it as a kid. You're just conformists going along with the latest thing. You don't have any particular moral convictions. In all ages and all generations, there are huge numbers of people who want to validate themselves and seek social acceptance by throwing themselves out front of whatever the thing at the moment is. That's all you are. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you would have been anti-LGBTQ, while a very small number of us were arguing the other side.
7 years ago, these people were making excuses for Hillary Clinton for not getting on board with gay marriage sooner. Well, politics is complicated. She had to, I was for gay marriage 10 years before every Democrat you knew was for gay marriage. I was for trans rights long before any of you guys knew what trans rights were. My cousin lives in Los Angeles. She's a fairly famous transgender influencer. She goes by the name Plastic Martyr. You can look her up on social media. She has tons of followers. The paparazzi follow her around. It's not my scene, obviously, so I don't know exactly what she does day to day, but she's pretty famous in that scene. I met her when, she was a boy. She was born a boy. I met her when I was 6 years old. She looked like a girl. She talked like a girl. She acted like a girl. I said, that doesn't make sense that she's a boy. Seems like she's a girl. And turns out she is a girl. And she's very happy. And God bless. Right? So, I don't need lectures from these people. Yes, I get it. I get it. I got it long before most of you assholes got it.
Well, I never mentioned this on the show. I mentioned, from hanging around people in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I was around that community when I was a teenager. I have financed drag shows. I've directed drag shows. I've conceived drag shows. I collaborated for 7 years with a drag performer who, I would ask him on the show and he would probably do it, but he's a teacher now. I'm afraid, I'm afraid of repercussions because of some of the positions we take on the show. I don't want him to get hurt. So to see people, you always get that when you take an opposing stance to people who argue the other way. Well, have you ever met these people? Yeah, more than you. Since I was a kid. What do you think? I come out of a New York City theater background. What are you thinking? Oh, drag queens I've never seen. Come on, man. It's an easy way to not take on the issue because I think it creates a lot of cognitive dissonance that you're not phobic. You just are rational. You're rational on the subject. You can both embrace that community and not think children should be at a sexually explicit drag show. You can support trans rights and not think trans women should be in prison with biological women. Those things are not in conflict. You're being brainwashed to think they're in conflict to keep us all fighting so that we don't come together as a people to actually fight our common enemy.
Right, exactly. Taya, we're going to move on to our third segment, but before we do you want to turn on? I see you waiting there. Just unmute that mic and I'll let you in. You're in. You got to unmute the microphone, though.
Yeah. Sorry, I had multitasking and studying.
Right.
How you going?
I'm doing great. Hi, guys. Thanks for calling in.
Impromptu.
Yeah.
Can I just point something out? I've seen that clip from Emma 3 times now, and every single time it fills me with so much rage. I can barely contain it.
I didn't think that was I can't believe you saw that because I didn't think that clip was out there that much.
No, they were. No, well, I've been following. I get long tweets as part of my Twitter Blue subscription, and it's just I'm using it. But it's just because I can't believe this idea of a track record when it's Anna Kasparian, but when people, again, I've been across this stuff for years, right? And I've seen so many women who have been activists, lesbians in the LGBT community, people who work at NGOs, J.K. Rowling, with a long tradition and a track record on the left, who have said far less and have been destroyed. And I've watched over the last 6-7 years, women just drift. And then, and you go, no, you're pushing them that way. And people like me try to go, no, because we've got this big thing in Australia at the moment with Kelly J. Keane, who I do not endorse, but there's this whole shit fight here. I don't know if you've seen it.
The one who wants to call them turds.
Yeah, but we've got that. That's in the context.
Turds, yeah.
Yeah, where there's a little bit of truth in everything, and the optics of that are terrible, right? But we've been fighting this fight.
Apparently, none of these activists have seen the Bacchae, because the final message of the Bacchae: don't fuck with women.
Yeah, but there's this whole media, obviously this Murdoch press. We're heavily dominated by Murdoch press here, who are whipping this into a frenzy, not helping. But there is that, poor optics of Nazis showing up to women's rallies and starting shit. And so there's this whole mess that's here. So there's a point there, which is if your rally has Nazis showing up, there's a question there to be about the optics, right? That's a legitimate big conversation to have. But the thing about Emma is that, I've watched Majority Report and I've watched her slag off TERFs constantly. I think there's some issues around her mother working there's something else there, something that the shift in energy that you see. I've seen this in other young sort of trans activist girls. There's some weird internal backlash that's going on here where they really don't like their mothers. There's something else that I'm not going to psychoanalyze anyone from afar, but there's a vitriol. There's something that shifts with that crew in particular that I've just observed, and I go, do you really just hate that your mother worked? Is there something else going on here? I don't understand it. And because this is something close to me, because I've got a daughter who's very much in the betrayed by J.K. Rowling camp. So, but I want to know where their charity is for all of those left-wing women that they've pushed away over the years. But when it's Anna Kasparian, because her money is actually directly linked to the TYT army and the TYT MCN and all of that sort of stuff, suddenly, she's got a track record. She's not anti-trans. Well, when 6 weeks ago she was just slagging off everybody else who says less. And I go, that's really disingenuous. And this is your brain.
Look at all the left-wingers who they've ostracized for suddenly taking a position that they don't agree with, right? In 9 out of 10 cases, it's, they've gone to the dark side, right?
They're right-wingers. They're right-wingers.
They're right-wingers.
Any,
did make an exception,
any deviation, any debate is not allowed.
Debate
is not allowed.
Yeah, and over these years, you start to watch the trends, and you go, I have seen so many women who could have been, I've never not been an ally, but there is a genuine legal conflict here, in just the wording, all of that sort of stuff, and it's just okay, well, yeah, I'm astonished at how this is. I think it is just a class thing. I think people reveal if you don't see the risk to working class women, especially women in prisons, right? Especially in the most vulnerable. Again, that's a whole other thing because I don't believe you're arguing the wrong thing with prisons.
It's a big part of why they have to argue that trans women are women, because according to international legal codes, it's a crime to imprison women with men. It's a crime. So they cannot even do that without arguing, no, but they're women. We're not actually imprisoning them with men. It is clown world, man. It is just clown world. And in the end, this is what I keep saying. Why do I talk about this? Why do I speak out against this? Because it hurts the left to be associated with these ideas. We need to disown these people. We need to make it clear. Yo, man, I didn't come to the party with these people. I'm not with them. They're not with me. They're not friends of mine. Right? No. You have to stop staying silent in the face of this madness, because you're never winning over a sizable political movement until you make it clear that because you believe in Medicare for all, that doesn't mean that you believe that rapists who decide that they're women should be housed with women.
And just because you acknowledge that there is a cleavage here, no pun intended, that's a political science term, which is funny, but there is an actual cleavage here, which is that somewhat unresolvable and left to a case-by-case basis. Just because you acknowledge the complexity, just my mentions alone, every day, anti-trans bigot from this Scientology fuckhead. That's just, and it's just get lost, you child. That's not an argument. Or people, 90% of the women here, some of them are genuinely anti-trans. I think we also need to acknowledge that.
Sure.
However, most of the women
Sure.
that I've seen have said so much less, have been accused of being bigots, and who are actually allies. But there is a large number of trans women in this. I hate these words, but gender critical movement. There's a lot of trans women in that who are saying, no, gender dysphoria is real. It is painful. I don't want anyone to go through this. If there is a therapeutic, solution to this, that's, like this is something, it's not a joke.
There is no one in this conversation whose voices are more suppressed than trans women who don't agree with this approach and these tactics. And there are many of them. And they get shut down immediately. Look at gays against groomers, right? They were not allowed to be part of that conversation. You mentioned them. Oh my God, they're right. They're like Nazis. Are they?
Yeah.
Are they? Okay, so you know what? Out debate them. Why don't you out debate them if that's what you think?
Well, this is why the ContraPoints, and I should have probably pulled that graphic, and maybe I will in a future show. But it's amazing. I mean, they literally train their audience to detect bigotry in very benign statements. They'll actually list a very benign statement as coded bigotry. One of the coded bigotry items on the list was trans activists have gone too far. Now, what does that mean? Right? Because what they're saying is, well, if you say, as we've said all the time, Russell says it more than me because he's frankly more interested in this topic than I am. But he says, I'm for trans rights, but I feel like trans activists have gone too far. That's what Russell says all the time.
If you've received
this is why
those
they train you to say, when they say, but trans activists have gone too far, they're actually hiding how they really feel, right? So they're actually literally conditioning their followers to try and detect bigotry and malice where none exists. Not only where none exists, but where people go out of their way to make sure that they're not being perceived in that way.
Well,
and this is because the arguments are just so weak, and this is largely why.
That's it.
This is largely why there's been this pile-on Anna Kasparian for saying something just so extremely simple and inoffensive. She even puts in there as a caveat: you can support trans rights and not be for this broad altering of language norms.
Right.
That's a dog whistle.
I mean, it's literally all she said.
Dude, I said to one of these people once, and it's true. My daughter, bisexual, was in a relationship for several years with a trans woman. It was never an issue. It's never like a point of contention. I don't care. Love who you love. Be with who you're with, man. You're happy. That's cool. And I had one of these people say, well, that doesn't prove anything.
Yeah,
man. No, I'm the virally anti-trans proud father of a girl in a relationship with a trans woman.
Here's how the conversation script goes, which is, have you ever talked to a trans person? Actually, yes, I've talked to several. I have several in my family. I personally questioned, some of this gender identity stuff. It makes me question because I'm on the spectrum as a girl. I mean, all those things. You go, okay. Oh yeah, I've also interviewed several. I have, blah blah blah. Oh, you're pulling out the My Trans Friend card. You can't win.
Yeah, right.
You can't win.
Well, because they're not honest actors. They're witch hunters,
No.
And that is why they're against the principles of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, because their movement cannot survive scientific inquiry. That they intimidate any scientists who speak up into silence, and then use their silence as evidence that scientists agree.
There's no research. Yeah.
Right. No, all scientists agree. Well, what happened to the ones who don't agree? Richard Dawkins, they took his awards away. People look at that and they say, you know what, I'm just not even going to get into that. People are avoiding that area of research altogether who don't want to go along to get along. And then you're going to use that when you intimidate people by threatening their careers, by threatening their ability to get grants, their ability to do research. And so you shut all those people down, you drive them out of academia, and then you say, you see, no one disagrees. It's like if in the middle of the Inquisition you said, everyone agrees that Catholic theology is 100% truthful.
Well, the other thing about this debate that's interesting is that the only people who are going to hang around long enough to the point where you can actually try and expose them for being this closeted, anti-trans bigot or something, they are people who are already with you on gay rights, right? Because the people who are against gay rights at this point, you're not even going to encounter them as a trans activist. That's a whole different universe. Right? It's just a whole different world. Like at this point, if you're against gay marriage, you're basically like a dinosaur, right? I mean, you may as well be against the Civil Rights Act at this point, right? It's such a small minority of people to the point where trans activists are very unlikely to encounter people with actual bigoted views. Whereas most people who are for gay rights, a vast majority of people who are pro-gay rights are pro-trans rights as well. And the disagreements come to specifics. Regarding specific circumstances.
Exactly.
Right? But if you're disagreeing with somebody over specifics and circumstances, then you're not dealing with someone who is ideologically in a different universe than you are, who you can legitimately and truthfully brand a bigot. Because they're not. Right? But because the arguments are so weak, they have no other tactic to fall back on except to try and expose you as a bad actor. Or someone with hatred in your heart. And even if it is demonstrably untrue, as it seems to be, I mean, I don't chime in on this enough because ultimately, our friend Anish Shivani says, ultimately, this is not an issue I lose that much rest over. And I kind of agree with that. But like, all three of us have trans people in our lives. But I'm assuming my cousin is going to be at the Passover Seder next week. I don't know if she watches the show. I'm sure I'll find out. I'll get a pretty good idea when I see her. But yeah, I mean, it becomes a no-win situation, and the reason it is a no-win situation is because a lot of people who are engaged in this debate for long enough are people who already pass a certain test where you can very, very fairly understand them to be not bigoted people who are against the existence of trans people. Like that guy, what the fuck is the Daily Wire guy's name? Walsh. Who talked about the eradication? Like, yeah, that's a
Oh no, Walsh didn't say.
No, I'm not talking about Walsh. I'm talking about the other guy.
Michael Knowles.
Stephen Knowles or Michael Knowles.
Michael
Knowles'
Knowles.
name is. Yeah, I mean that's a hateful guy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's a hateful guy, but he wouldn't be on here for an hour in a forum like this because he wouldn't want anything to do with us. He's not in the same universe as we are. Yeah.
Yeah, and most people are just fighting to be heard. And can I just tell you very quickly what happened when I actually tried, part of the reason with my early YouTube, I tried to interview trans people, okay? And I'm going to tell you, I've got some experience in this. Every single interview that I had with a trans woman or detransitioner or anything like that who went against this thing, they were harassed and given death threats to the point where they would ask me to take the videos down. They are not allowed to speak, and by association, you get abuse for trying to do the right thing. You cannot win. And I hope that Anna, I mean, there's Anna obviously has to. She's seen it for what it is. The threat. Yeah, that exactly. That is an ongoing thing. You try to do the right thing, and that was. I think I said that in the comments on one of the last time I was on to someone, and I said I have tried repeatedly to get more trans voices, and they get harassed. And I had one in tears on the phone to me saying, but they're just harassing me. I've got to take it down.
Yeah.
And that's the real experience of trans voices.
And that's what I'm saying, just like with scientists. And then they say, no trans people are against this. No. Right? You don't let the ones who are against it talk about it. You don't allow those voices in the conversation. You harass them because look, man, it's these people always have an advantage because the most mentally unhealthy people spend the most time on social media.
Yep.
They have an advantage over the sane people because they're just not going to sit there all day obsessing.
And they've been weaponized.
What everybody tweeted, right?
Yeah. And this is, again, if you know much about the big tobacco disinfo, like the way that big tobacco and Monsanto and all those those tactics. I don't want to get into that crazy shit because I'm not one of those people, but that it rhymes. It looks, there are, and especially if you read some of the annual reports around the emerging market of gender dysphoria and that they're anticipating growth and the way that they cynically talk about this in the markets, you go, okay, this looks, you know what I mean? There's some fuckery going on here as well. And it's not a conspiracy theory to suggest that maybe there's other interests sort of nudging these tribes.
That's what I
say. To be at billboards.
Because it's so obviously insane that you have to say, like, what's behind this? Like, what's pushed this out to this point? In a time like this, it doesn't make any sense.
All right, Taya, before we let you go, because we have one more segment we got to do, Virtuoso has a question. No, Virtuoso has a question for you, so don't go anywhere yet.
No.
Have you interviewed Theron Meyer?
No, I actually decided to go back into my lane, which was around tech and influencer campaigns and disinformation and manipulation and nudges. I decided to stay in my lane after what happened. I didn't want to expose trans people to this. I actually felt that I didn't feel responsible. Hang on. I didn't feel that I was the right person to facilitate this. I felt that it was an ethical, you know what I mean, to expose a guest to this kind of treatment was unfair of me to do. I know that's it, you know what I mean? I just didn't feel right about, it just became so untenable. I just went, no, back into my lane. Yes, I'm a political scientist. Yes, I'm in UX, but I'm in user experience. I could talk about TikTok to the Twitter files. That's it. That's my lane. But this has just been the thing that was this issue was the trigger that made me see that all this was coming unstuck. So I know a lot in it. So
all right. Well,
it was my entry point.
I want to address perhaps it's not the elephant in the room, but the bird in the room. Are there birds in your room? People keep talking about birds.
Man, freaking Australia, there's birds everywhere.
Do you have birds?
Birds?
Or are they outside?
Oh, no, they're outside.
They're outside, man. Australia, everywhere like that.
Yeah, a lot of birds.
Where in Australia are you?
I'm in Perth, in Murdoch, Perth. Yeah. So I live in Murdoch, ironically, but I woke up to a willy wagtail, and every so often we've got magpies and the crested pigeons, and they're territorial. So you can actually wake up to a literal Twitter fight every morning. So it's pretty good. Every morning I wake up and prepare myself,
Walking around Australia is like Avatar, man. You got these
it's amazing.
You got these trippy birds and animals that you've never seen before.
Louis C.K. said that.
I've seen
Louis C.K. said that on Rogan.
Never been there, but I've seen the pictures. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's still sunny. It's actually sunny to the point of being dull in Perth, where I've never seen snow in my life, believe it or not. But Louis C.K. said that. He said, if you want to just understand Australia, especially Perth, you will come here. It looks exactly like America, but every so often you'll see a parrot fly past your head, or there's birds everywhere. Yeah. So it's basically like a mall, but with birds. So,
I think Virtuoso.
At any time, guys.
Such a New Yorker. Those are some loud ass birds.
Yeah, I've also got a different microphone.
Every morning, man, you wake up to those birds over there. Man.
Yeah, I haven't used these headphones before either, so it might just be that they're directional. So yeah.
Oh, all right.
Well, no problem. Get to Kyle.
Okay, thanks,
people
guys.
waiting for the Kyle takedown.
All right,
sorry, guys.
Thank you,
okay, thanks.
No, you're great. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Thanks for calling in.
Only tech.
Yeah, only tech from now on.
And Emma. Tech and Emma.
Tech and Emma. All right, you are Tech and Emma correspondent. All right, thank you, Taya.
Bye, guys.
That's Taya Smith, everybody. Taya is also a patron supporter. We don't just line these guests up randomly. All of our patron supporters have the option to call in and join the conversation. So you may have noticed a pattern. What we like to do is we like to get our segment done and clipped so we can clip it, and then we go to a caller if we have a caller on the topic. But all right, so our third and final segment of the evening is to commemorate and celebrate our good friend Kyle Kulinski, who recently reached the 1 million subscriber plateau. 1 million subscriber plateau. What did I tell you guys? You guys have to listen when I talk. Okay? You got to listen. You got to listen when I say something to you. I'm saying something to you. I'm talking to you. I'm trying to talk to you here. What did I say? Kyle Kulinski was stuck about 970,000 to 980,000 subs for well over a year. And then campaign season started, and he figured out that the way he was going to boost his subscription count was he had to back a candidate. And so he's been all in on Marianne Williamson for the last couple of months, and boom, million subs, baby. Got that boost. That's what I told you.
As I have foreseen. Everything is proceeding as
That's what I told you this was about. That's what I told you this was about. You got to listen to me. You got to listen to me. Okay? So now we're going to break this down because now he is all in for Marianne Williamson, and he was very, very upset at a Politico article that recently came out. I'm just going to toss this on the screen very, very quickly because we have some other exhibits that we're going to show. But this came out here. Marianne Williamson's abusive treatment of 2020 campaign staff revealed. All right. So this details some allegations of workplace abuse at Marianne campaign headquarters in 2020. Kyle put out a video tearing this apart, or so he tried. We're going to play excerpts from this video. We will link to the full video in the description. I will update the description of this video with that so that people can watch the whole thing if they want. There's really no reason to. We just want to make sure that you understand we're not editing it in a manipulative way to take anything out of context. So we'll give you access to the full thing. Russell wanted to play the full video earlier. Russell was telling me earlier today, I think we should play the full video. I said, lunatic, we're not playing an 18-minute video and commenting on it. We'll be here for 4 hours. Okay, we have to trim it down. All right. This is complicated enough as it is.
There's a lot of the dynamic here. Keaton reins me in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this video made me fucking furious. It's so dishonest. It's so deceptive. It's so disrespectful to the people who watch him and trust that he's telling them the truth. Like the things that he does here, the tactics that he uses, they're not only corporate media propaganda tactics. There is no kind interpretation you can put on it. Well, he's distorting it. It's on. No, he lies. He lies repeatedly, just one lie after another, demonstrably throughout this segment. And one thing I'll point out before we get into it, this is unusual not to put up the article text on the screen when you're breaking down an article. He can't because he's lying. He's lying about what's in the article. If he actually put up the text, it would contradict what he's saying. Keaton did a great breakdown of this, how this is all about a grift and getting subscribers, and that's true. But seeing how far he's willing to degrade himself and to really just piss on his own audience this way, it's really being in this space. You're not always going to agree with everything we say, and that's fine, but you're always going to know we're telling you the truth as we see it. He left that exit on the highway way back. This is a stunning level of dishonesty.
All right, let's get started here.
Marianne Williamson, what do we know for sure? What do we know as a rock solid fact? In the 1980s, when everybody was running away from HIV and AIDS patients at 100 miles an hour, Marianne Williamson was holding their hands and giving them their medicine as they died, and giving them love and affection as they died. So take the biggest upside of Marianne Williamson, her kindness, her sympathy, her empathy, and turn it into a weakness and go, actually, you guys might not know this, she's the worst person in the world to have ever lived.
Okay, so this is what Kyle is not telling you. Yes, a lot of people were running away from AIDS patients, and God bless her for doing that work. I'm not denying that she did do work like that. But at the same exact time, people were running away from Marianne Williamson for being a crazy, manipulative tyrant who would drive her staff to tears. And she was actually often accused by people of using what she was doing to gain fame and notoriety around Hollywood. So we have the first exhibit. Okay, so hang on, is that it? Okay, so this is no, I had the combined one.
Oh, the New York and LA one?
Yeah, just to keep it simple.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, wrong one. Nope, that's the wrong one. I have to find the. For some reason, that New York one is not here.
Listen, I dumped like 8,000 exhibits on Keaton right before the show. So
here it is. I apologize about that.
There's one time I tried to simplify it. All right, so just overall,
here it is. I got it.
Yeah. So other criticism centers on her high-handed management. Now this is from an article that appeared in People magazine 30 years ago. And you're going to see a lot of similarities as we go back and forth between this Politico article that Kyle is claiming is completely untrue. It's uncannily similar to the complaints that people had about her 30 years ago. They were saying the same exact thing about her back then. Last year, in a dispute over the Manhattan Center for Living's religious orientation, William dismissed most of its board members, including film director Mike Nichols, who went on to create a rival AIDS support organization. So in New York, the whole, a good portion of the board wound up, led by Mike Nichols, went and created their own AIDS organization rather than to work with Marianne Williamson. So now on the LA side, she went through 4 different executive directors until she finally fired a very popular local politician who had become executive director, leading to an uprising among the staff. So in LA, Williamson's 20-member Center for Living staff rebelled last month after the firing of the center's 4th director in 5 years, popular local politician Steve Schultz, who had clashed frequently with Williamson over business strategy. Some employees are attempting to unionize in an effort, they say, to protect themselves from Williamson's bad-tempered caprices. Wow, this sounds pretty familiar. So this is what he's not telling you about her AIDS charity work, that at the same time, there was a lot of controversy around her AIDS charity work because the people who worked with her said she was impossible to work with even then.
All right, let's keep going.
One of the criticisms in there, she's really indecisive. So she would have an event that was on the schedule. She'd be getting ready for that event, and then she'd cancel that event, and then she'd put that event back on, and that would anger her staff. And she would like yell in the process of doing these things. They say,
okay,
oh, she's
that is not what it says. That's not the complaint. So this is a very sneaky, and he continuously does this, distorts what's actually in the article. Okay, so he's trying to make it kind of vaguely anti-feminist. Oh, they're saying that she's indecisive. No, they're not saying she's indecisive. They're saying she's a fucking abusive maniac. All right, do we have that? Okay, so those former aides said Williamson's behavior was hard to predict. She paraded staffers for seemingly inconsequential things, like if they booked a hotel room that had a walk-in shower and not a bathtub, they said. She would tell her staff to cancel an event, only to change her mind a day later and accuse them of trying to undermine her campaign. She obsessed over the physical appearance of, this is another thing, but that's Keaton's rodaho. She obsessed over the physical appearance of others and ridiculed staffers for being overweight, according to 4 former aides. Williamson said she never mocked anyone for their weight. That's her response. Okay, so you see what Kyle is doing here? Yeah, they say she's indecisive. That is not the meaning of that paragraph. That paragraph is saying that she would change her mind and then abuse her staff for the change.
Yeah, for not adapting.
That's the point of that paragraph, not what he's saying.
Right, exactly.
So rude that she mocks people's appearances and she goes after them for their weight. So she fat shames people. These are arguments that are tailor-made to try to get like a left-wing base to abandon her when, of course, the left-wing base is like the only group in the country right now that's already sort of solid supporters. Turn your strength into your weakness.
Okay, no. See, this is where I have to jump in here. See, Kyle, just look at what we're doing. I feel like this is a good frame to pause it on here. All right. I put out a meme on Twitter, how it started, how it's going. How it started was this rousing Bernie rally with all these working class people from, all different backgrounds, putting their fists in the air. And then this is where we've ended up, is it not? Yeah. Just look at this. Just look at this. All right. Now that I've gotten that out of my system, there is no base of support for Marianne Williamson. I will remind you once again, she is polling at 0. She's polling at 0. When they force her into the question in a head-to-head matchup against Joe Biden, where it's the three choices are Biden, Williamson, other. She finished third behind other at 4%. There is no base of support.
That's sad when you finish behind other.
She finished behind other. It was Biden 70, I believe.
Other
I
for
forget
president.
what exactly Biden's percentage was. Biden was in the mid 70s. Other was at 9. She was at 4. That's the way it was. All right. So there is no base of support here. The idea that they are targeting a woke progressive reader who, by the way, what percentage of Politico's readership fits that description? I don't know. The idea that they are targeting her base and trying to get her base of progressives to turn on her by mentioning that she mocked people for their weight is delusional, insane, conspiratorial thinking. They put this article out for one reason and one reason only. It's a nice, juicy gossip story while Marianne's in the news.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it. It's clickbait.
That's it.
It's clickbait.
There is no motive here. They are not putting this out to crush her. She is polling at 0. She polls at 4 when they force her into the question. The DNC already said there will be no debate. She is a non-candidate. She is not on their radar. If Politico really wanted to stick it to Marianne, you know what they do? Not cover her at all. Because when you're polling as poorly as she is, there ain't no such thing as bad press. So if anything, this is just, boosting her profile, right? Which could only help her, right?
Like they're sitting around at Politico. Oh man, what do we do about Marianne? She's really going to mess up Biden's campaign.
No, but this is the narrative that he has to sell to his audience, or else he would not have reached 1 million subscribers.
Right.
Because the only thing he could do besides gas up a candidate is make boring, sort of boilerplate, platitudinous videos about, do you know the health insurance companies bribe the politicians? Well, we've known that for 10 years. That's all you have to add to the discourse because you're not bright enough to add anything beyond that. And so at a certain point, people ain't going to sign up for that anymore, right? You've pretty much drawn, all the juice out of that fruit. So now you need a candidate. It's campaign season. Right. That's what this is about. It begins and ends there. All right.
Well, and I think it's also about tapping into the people who listen to her lectures and who buy her books, because he's run out of people in the alternative media space who want to imbibe the bowl of warm oatmeal that is Kyle Kulinski. So he has to go someplace else. He has to tap somebody else's fans. He's tapping hers.
Right. Exactly. All right, let's keep going.
They're trying to do here. It is crystal clear. Yet again, this is something that she categorically denies. The only thing in the article that she doesn't deny is when she hurt her hand. Because she was so mad.
That's a lie. That's a lie. She doesn't deny two things. She doesn't deny, well, let's pull it up so we can explain what he's talking about here. Okay. So staffers claim that she threw a phone at them, which she's denying. They claim that she punched a car door repeatedly until her hand swelled up and she had to be taken to an emergency room. And they also claim that she so often screamed at her staffers with such fury that hotel staff would come to check to see if everything was okay. So 2 things that she admits to. In the same email, Williamson denied ever throwing a phone at staffers, but she did acknowledge that she went to urgent care after getting upset and hitting her hand on a car door, but said a car door is not a person. I would never be physically hurtful to a person, except the person who got hit with the phone, but she's denying that. She also acknowledged that there was an occasion when she raised her voice in a hotel room and someone came to see what was happening. Quote, I find it hard to believe that people in politics have never raised their voice before, unquote, she said. So now what do you notice about the 2 things that she admits to? There are outside witnesses who could confirm the story. Everything that she denies has only been witnessed by, as we shall see, people who are so terrified of the extremely draconian NDAs that they had to sign that she made it very clear she would enforce if she ever broke them. Those things she's denying because they can't come forward. Everything where there's an outside witness not bound by an NDA. Oh yeah, no, that part's true.
Right.
So what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the rest of the story? Especially when you have similar stories across 30 years, which we'll show you more of that as we go.
All right, let's watch more.
The car door, she hurt her own hand. Now, notice something. This isn't about, oh my God, she was physically violent with any of her staffers.
Yes, it is.
If she threw a phone.
Yes, it is. If she threw a phone,
it is. Yeah, that is.
Person. No, the strongest claim they make against her vis-a-vis other people is she yells and she's mean and she's not the kindest to her own staffers, which again, she categorically denies. Now, by the way, there's all this anonymous. There's one person in the article that they actually
okay, hang on. So here again, he is grossly misinforming his audience. Why is it anonymous, Kyle? Why is it anonymous? Well, we have a portion of that Politico article to explain why it's anonymous. We got into this a little bit with the NDAs. Williamson feared that her staff would go behind her back and talk to reporters about her behavior, according to 6 former staffers who said she required campaign employees to sign non-disclosure agreements and made clear that they would be strictly enforced. At one point in 2019, she suggested monitoring staffers' phones, according to one of them, but never followed through with the idea. Williamson denied that she ever suggested doing such a thing. Quote, "The message was, don't fuck with me because I will make your life a living hell. So no one fucked with her," said a third former aide. Campaigns often use NDAs to protect proprietary information from spilling out into the public. But former aides say Williamson's use of NDAs went beyond just her full-time campaign staff. Those aides said that Williamson's personal assistant traveled with NDAs readily available and would ask taxi drivers and other service industry workers to sign them if Williamson lost her temper in front of them. Williamson denied this charge too. However, 2 former staffers said they witnessed this happen on separate occasions after Williamson started berating staff in cabs to and from fundraising and media events in New York. So this is what he's not telling you. Look at that. Oh, yeah, no, they're staying anonymous. That is like Rachel Maddow Joy Gray shit. To be like, oh, well, what are they hiding? Why are they staying anonymous without telling you the entire context in the article of why these people won't come forward?
I want her to write a book called Don't Fuck With Me. That'd be a great name for a Marianne Williamson book with her face on the cover.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with me.
I will make your life hell.
My Path to Spiritual Transcendence. Yeah, a memoir by Marianne Williamson. Don't fuck with me.
A Course in Miracles addendum. The Lost Apocrypha. Jesus. Yeah. Jesus said, don't fuck with me. But the patriarchy suppressed it.
All right, here we go.
So I hope you're sitting down. It's her former Iowa State director, who, by the way, used to work for Bernie's campaign, comes out and he verifies it. He's like, yeah, she's mean. She's terrible to her own people. It's inexcusable. I'd never allow something like that. The same dude, in this article, they even admit it. Why was he let go from Bernie Sanders' campaign? Because he allegedly forcibly kissed somebody who worked underneath him. So the one person that you actually cite in the article is a dude who himself, according to your own admission, has a little bit of a sketchy history.
Okay, now, so he just lied to you. He just lied to his audience. It is not one person that they cite. It is 2, and he conflates 2 different people in that account. So one person who came forward was a former congressman who was a staffer on her campaign. He was the chair for New Hampshire. That's Hodes. Okay, when presented with details of Politico's reporting, Paul Hodes, a former U.S. congressman who served as Williamson's 2020 New Hampshire state director, said such descriptions mirrored his own experience working with her. Quote, Those reports of Miss Williamson's behavior are consistent with my observations, consistent with contemporaneous discussions I had about her conduct with staff members, and entirely consistent with my own personal experience with her behavior on multiple occasions, he said. Now, he's pretending that this guy is the other guy who's quoted, but this is what's interesting about Becker being quoted. He didn't actually say anything for the article. They quote him from his resignation email, which was done in confidence to Williamson at a time when he really had nothing to gain and everything to lose by resigning from her campaign because he had lost his job on the Sanders campaign because of those accusations. What possible motivation could he have to send her a private email years ago? This is 2020. This is not now. Resigning from a gig that he had gotten in the Me Too era after having to resign from a campaign in scandal. If she was not the monster to work for that they're describing, why would he have resigned? See, Kyle put these things all together so that you wouldn't understand what's actually in the article. So let's look at Becker's. In a resignation email sent to Williamson on August 14, 2019, Robert Becker, the campaign's then Iowa state director, wrote that Williamson's treatment of staff was, quote, belittling, abusive, dehumanizing, and unacceptable, unquote, according to a copy of the email exchange with Williamson obtained by Politico. Becker, who was a controversial hire due to a prior allegation that he forcibly kissed a subordinate while working on Senator Bernie Sanders' 2016 Democratic presidential campaign, added, quote, I cannot in good faith subject any future campaign hires to this kind of vitriol. For 30 years, I have had zero tolerance for bullying in the workplace, and that has to include the principal. Williamson emailed back, I did go out on a limb for you, but more importantly, I had no idea that you would have seen me that way. Hopefully, I will learn from what you have said, and hopefully you will not say such things to others. You know, it's very interesting because she says,
don't fuck with me.
P.S. Don't fuck with me. She says very similar things when asked these questions in the articles 30 years before, where she says, yes, I have some growing to do, and I'm going to reflect on what you said. Well, apparently she didn't reflect enough. And in the end, it looks like instead of managing the behavior that she was being called out for even then, she decided to just walk around with a ream of NDAs everywhere that she goes to make sure that nobody can talk about how she actually behaves when she's not talking about love and forgiveness in front of an audience. And Kyle, what a fucking scumbag. Okay, so you heard what he said, right? You heard what he said. Is there any honest explanation for what he just did? He is lying to his audience. He has no respect. They are a piggy bank to him at this point. All he cares about is advertising revenue.
Passages that they have in here is kind of amazing because it undermines the rest of their arguments. They say, quote, still, her behavior came as a shock to most of her 2020 campaign staff, the majority of whom had backgrounds working in politics and only knew of Williamson through her best-selling books and public speaking events, encouraging people to harness the power of love and learn to forgive. So let me decode that for you. We reached out to like 100 people to try to get them to shit on Marianne Williamson and tank Marianne Williamson's campaign. We were only able to find a few people who would do it. And we're going to slyly acknowledge that by saying, hey, most of the people actually liked her and they were really shocked to hear these allegations. So we're going to put a passage about that as the rest of the article is just totally, absolutely dragging her reputation through the mud and smearing her relentlessly. They describe her
that one makes that like my head's going to explode. That is not at all what that paragraph says. He takes it completely out of context. It is not people saying they were surprised to hear this about Marianne Williamson. It is people saying that they were surprised she turned out to be this fucking monster because they only knew her from her books. So let's look at this in context. Still, her behavior came as a shock to most of her 2020 campaign staff, right? This is not, I was shocked to hear you ask this question because I thought she was great. They're saying he's just distorting the whole meaning of this. They were shocked that she behaved this way.
At the behavior, right.
The majority of whom had backgrounds working in politics and only knew of Williamson through her best-selling books and public speaking events, encouraging people to harness the power of love and learn to forgive. Notice he dropped all of that context. It goes on. Some people said they joined the campaign simply because they needed a job and Williamson was offering them one. Others said they thought that there was room in the race for a dark horse candidate to push people, including Biden, on topics such as reparations. And some said that Williamson's books on compassion and forgiveness had helped them through their own struggles of divorce, addiction, and loss of family members. Instead, they walked away feeling emotionally tormented. It's cliche, but all I can say is don't meet your heroes, said a fifth former staffer. Now look at what Kyle told you this said. He is a fucking lying scumbag douche. If you're still watching Kyle, man, after this, if you watch this segment, you still watch Kyle, you're hopeless.
This is a direct quote from the article. They describe her anger as, quote, "It would be foaming, spitting, uncontrollable rage." Foaming? Her anger was foaming. She would be foaming at the mouth. So like a cartoon wolf or something. You have to make it sound more realistic if you're going to go for these gutter smear campaigns. You can't go that over the top because then everybody knows you're full of shit. Apparently.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lance Bass. Thanks for the political tips. Okay. Let's take a look at what the paragraph actually says. And he knows foaming is a figure of speech. Okay, so jumping on that really shows you how weak his argument is. So this is the context of the overall paragraph. It would be foaming, spitting, uncontrollable rage, said a former staffer who, like most people that spoke with Politico, was granted anonymity because of their concern about being sued for breaking non-disclosure agreements. Quote, "It was traumatic, and the experience in the end was terrifying." Okay, so he's trying to hone in on this one word, which is clearly used in a metaphorical context, like foaming at the mouth. It's a common expression. But that is uncannily similar to articles that the Politico article linked to from 30 years ago. So let's take a look at the one from the LA Times. This is all going to sound very similar. Many people who have worked with her say she has an explosive temper that erupts indiscriminately, even in front of sick clients. This is when she was working with cancer and AIDS patients. They contend she is a control freak who insists on becoming involved in every detail and cannot bear to be upstaged or challenged. If you don't agree with Marianne, quote, "You're not going to be around very long," said Dick de Vogelaire, a dismissed executive director who sued the center for breach of contract and later settled. Quote, "Marianne is someone who likes to control everyone around her," said journalist Jean Halberstam, formerly on the Manhattan Center's board. Let's look at the People exhibit. Is this just a random quote from the LA Times? Is this only one source? Her treatment of other loyal employees has also caused grumbling in the ranks. One staffer, the Manhattan Center's board director, Regina Hoover, was put on probation with Williamson's consent last year, 1 week before Hoover's scheduled double mastectomy. A short time after her surgery, Hoover was fired, then forced to haggle for months over the terms of her medical insurance. Oh, yeah, she's a saint. Quote, "Marianne's ego is all over the place," says a worker at the LA Center for Living who wishes to remain anonymous. "When she's mad, it's like watching a 3-year-old throw a tantrum. I've seen her reduce a volunteer worker to tears and swearing that he'd never come back." Since a story critical of Williamson's abrasiveness appeared in the February 16th Los Angeles Times, at least one individual donor and one corporate donor say they have suspended financial contributions, and several demoralized Project Angel food volunteers had to be dissuaded from resigning. Not long before that story's publication, Williamson warned her staff not to speak to reporters. Her words, according to witnesses, quote, "You're fucking with my livelihood. I'm famous. I don't need this, damn it." Wow, that sounds uncannily similar to the accounts coming from her 2020 campaign. But Kyle's not going to tell you any of that. He's not even going to show you the article that he's commenting on because he's afraid you might see those links and look it up for yourself.
Yeah, and this may seem like a long article because of the insane, and I mean that literally, insane amount of research that Russell put into this segment here. But it's actually not a long article. Like, he could have just read the article front to back and picked it apart as he went. It wouldn't have taken much to put it on the screen, right?
Right.
So,
No. That's quite purposeful.
Right. Exactly.
How else could he distort it this way?
Right.
They demand loyalty to, quote,
he's talking about Politico
and
now.
Israel from all employees.
All right, let me back this up a few seconds. So now he's talking about the outlet itself.
Right.
Attacking the source.
Hey, you can't go that over the top because then everybody knows you're full of shit. Apparently, they demand loyalty to, quote.
I'm sorry, I have to stop it again. The fantasy world that he is creating for his viewers, that everyone knows you're full of shit. No one knows it. No one cares. No one cares about it either.
No one cares enough.
No one gives a shit.
To know or not know or think about it or consider it.
I wonder if that was a smear on Marianne Williamson. I wonder if Politico took the time to write a smear piece on a candidate who has zero polling support and who is already being told she's not going to get a debate with Joe Biden. Really, I mean, just incredible. The delusion. And this is, look, I brought this up to Matt Taibbi yesterday. We talked about this a lot. The incentives and the MOs in corporate media are not all that different from indie media. Media is media, right? Just as Rachel Maddow got her viewers all up in a frenzy, invested her viewers in this literal alternate reality where Trump was a Manchurian candidate conspiring with the Russians to seize power.
Right.
He's creating an alternate reality where anyone gives a fuck about anything he's saying. It's just pathetic.
Incredible. There's this Monachian battle over the Marianne Williamson campaign.
Exactly. All right, here we go.
Capitalism and Israel.
All right, sorry. I apologize, folks. I got to back this up again because I stepped on it. I
stepped on the clip.
Yeah.
You're going to go for these gutter smear campaigns. You can't go that over the top because then everybody knows you're full of shit. Apparently, they demand loyalty to, quote, capitalism and Israel from all employees. This is on the record. This was reported. Politico demands loyalty to capitalism and Israel. By the way, if you really
so once again, he just lied to his viewers. He's lying. Now, certainly, we are the last people to defend Politico or corporate media. Generally.
Or capitalism or Israel.
Or capitalism or Israel or any of those things. This is how horrifically dishonest this segment is. You're forcing us to defend Politico. That is how dishonest. There are plenty of legitimate things you could say about Politico. Let me ask you, Kyle. I didn't have enough time because, as Keaton points out, I already did an insane amount of research. I promise if I go back into the archives, I'm going to find you covering a Politico article or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 positively because it said what you liked. We all do that. I'm not going to call you out for. We all do that. We all pull the New York Times article that we like. We pull the Washington Post article that we like. Even Chomsky does not say, don't read the corporate media. He says to read it with a critical eye.
Right.
He tells you there's a lot of information out. What are we? We have the resources to do on the ground reporting to send people around the world.
Right,
we have to go to those sources.
Right.
We have to use them. It's neither here nor there. If you can't knock down the facts, which as we've just demonstrated, you can't. You just lied to your listeners for 15 minutes straight. You can't knock down the facts. So now you're going to the source. That's always a cheap tactic. If you can knock down the facts and then you want to say something about the source, fine, but it's neither here nor there in and of itself. But you had to lie here too. And that's kind of amazing. You couldn't find true shit to say about Politico? Really? You had to lie about Politico? Okay, so this is what he's talking about. Politico was bought by a German company. And Germany, because, they had a little problem about 70 years ago with people fond of black leather and shiny boots, they do not have the freedom of speech standards that we do. So it is not unusual for them to have company charters that we in America would never tolerate or allow. So this is their essentials. It's like their company constitution. We stand up for freedom, the rule of law, democracy, and a united Europe. We support the Jewish people and the right of existence of the state of Israel because of the shiny boots people. We advocate the transatlantic alliance between the United States of America and Europe because we don't want to pay for our own military. We uphold the principles of a free market economy and its social responsibility because Davos, that's why we put those things together. We reject political and religious extremism and all forms of racism and sexual discrimination. It's a nice thought. I would love to see your pay scales. But okay, so this is the thing. But in the American context, they do not have the people in their newsrooms swear fealty to these principles or agree to abide by these principles because they know that's not going to fly. So what did the actual journalists working at these outlets say about these essentials? We know because this is the part of the reporting Kyle's not telling you, which is what he's done throughout this piece. We have that?
Yep.
In preparing to write this week's newsletter, I got this from Jewish Current, I believe it was called. I spoke on background with several journalists currently employed at Politico or at Insider, the New York-based news site formerly known as Business Insider, that Springer bought for $440 million in 2015 as part of its U.S. expansion. Insider told me in a statement that its employees do not sign a pledge to uphold Springer's principles, and that while part of the Axel Springer corporate family, Insider acts as an independent news organization. All of my sources told me broadly the same things, that the essentials are onerous and inconsistent with how American journalists typically operate, that none of them has ever been asked to sign anything committing them to the essentials or would ever agree to do so, and that if the essentials were to be cited in order to censor a particular article, it would likely prompt a newsroom revolt. So that's what Kyle didn't tell you. Kyle, and look, you want to put some nuance on it. You want to say, well, this is what they claim, but I find it very suspicious because Politico is a right-wing outlet. All right, it's a little sleazy, but at least you're kind of hewing closer to the path of truth. He just straight out lied and claimed that their journalists are forced to pledge allegiance to these principles, which is clearly untrue. And he said categorically, this has been reported. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. You're lying. You are fucking lying.
About serious issues with candidates. Are you aware that Donald Trump is accused of rape and sexual assault from dozens of women?
Back
Are
up
you
a little
aware?
Bit,
we'll go back to the seal
clap. Yeah, he does a seal clap.
Employees.
It's kind of cute.
This is on the record. This was reported.
No, it wasn't.
Politico demands loyalty to capitalism and Israel.
You're a fucking
By the way,
liar.
if you really want to have this conversation about serious issues with candidates, are you aware that Donald Trump is accused of rape and sexual assault from dozens of women? Are you aware that Joe Biden was accused of rape? Are you aware that Joe Biden voted for the Iraq war, which led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians? Are you aware that Donald Trump attacked a top Iranian commander, nearly sparking World War III, when that commander was in the field fighting ISIS? Are we really having a conversation about whether or not she yelled? Well, guess what?
Well, I don't know, Keaton. Are they aware of that? Are they aware?
Seems they are. Seems they were at the time.
It looks like they reported on every single story that he just mentioned. Well, I guess they are aware. So, Kyle, you have your answer. Yes, they're aware. And Marianne Williamson is still a fucking lunatic when she's not in front of a camera. None of this changes any of that.
Seems like, her antics were not singled out as being more important than the assassination of an Iranian commander, right?
No, it was not.
It's like
it looks like
they spilled some ink over that as well.
They gave that some inches. They gave that some column inches.
Exactly.
Even if every single thing in this article was true, which it's not, she's the only one in the race who wants Medicare for all and free college and a living wage and ending the wars.
Ending the wars. I love how he always puts this ending the wars thing as if he gives a shit about ending the wars. Look at his channel feed. How many videos he done on Ukraine? How many videos has he done on Nord Stream?
Does he do any on those?
How many?
Well,
I mean, hardly any.
Nah, man.
Ending the wars. Ending the wars. But look, this is where this movement has ended up. This movement has ended up with guys like this, in suits like that, with earrings like that, shirts like that, in sets like this, ranting about
is that the old Brady
for
Bunch
these
house?
policy initiatives that are, I'm sorry, folks, not happening anytime soon. The chance to fast track those policies he was talking about, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, free college, right? Your chance came and went with the Bernie campaigns. And I'm not saying the Bernie campaigns were a great shot to do it, because he obviously had everything stacked against him in the primaries, as we knew. And even if he won, even if he became president, I'm not saying that would have happened. But the opportunity to fast track those policies is gone now. It's over now. And so at this point, when you get on camera, as he does, and start screaming about Medicare for all, Green New Deal, free college, it's the same kind of virtue signaling that the wokesters engage in, only it's a different set of ideas that you're virtue signaling about. Medicare for all is just a virtue signal right now. It breaks my heart to say that. It honestly does. All right? That's one of the issues I care most about. But we don't talk about it much anymore, not because we don't support it, but because it's not even a political expression right now to talk about Medicare for all, because there is no momentum towards Medicare for all. And certainly with thought leaders like this fucking asshole, there's not going to be any momentum towards Medicare for all for quite some time. This is a virtue signal, just like the libs virtue signal, just like the right-wingers virtue signal, progressives also virtue signal. To be screaming and leading a charge, right, of a few thousand Marianne stands, and to to present that as a serious a serious movement towards those policies that he just mentioned is just nonsense. You're just jerking the audience off. Why? Well, we're going to find out why in just a minute, but let's let this finish.
And we can go on and on. Getting money out of politics, so ending the corruption. She's the only one that wants to address the real issues. So even if your little shitty smear piece was accurate, which it's not, I would still sit here and say, don't care.
All right. Well, that's a great way to just give yourself a path out the back door in case anyone does the kind of research that Russell did to prove that, in fact, it seems as though the claims in this article are valid. But why lead people down this road? Well, we'll find out why right here. This just came out yesterday, I believe. Kyle Kulinski reached 1 million subscribers, and look who sent him a congratulatory tweet about that.
Wow.
Marianne Williamson. Congratulations to Kyle Kulinski for hitting the 1 million mark. So proud to know you. There you have it.
Well, that's strange.
There you have it.
Yeah.
It's very obvious. This is why I made that video a few weeks ago, because I knew this was going to happen. It was obvious this was going to happen. Sabby Sabs did a great video where she featured my video as part of it. She played like 5 minutes of it and commented on it, but she did a much more thorough job than I did in that video. I think she went on for about an hour because she's been in this game longer than we have. So I have my theories about it, and I believe those theories have proven accurate. I think this is a pretty good piece of evidence for that right here. Picture's worth 1,000 words, as they say. But she has a much more in-depth knowledge of the way this stuff actually works. We're just a couple of schmucks guessing our way through it, right? But
that's what was really nice about having Taibbi on. That's why I wanted to ask him about the mechanics of everyone smearing him with the same words. I was really wondering if he knew about some button they push.
Yeah, if he had any tips or anything we should be aware of, right? Exactly. But yeah, there you have it. That's how that ends. And Kyle's 1 million subscribers don't go away when Marianne loses. I mean, some of them will, because some of them are going to feel a little burned, right? But most of them are going to hang around. Overall, this is going to be a net gain for him, right? Because that's what this is all about. All this guy can talk about. Notice how stale those talking points are. she's the only one for Medicare for all, Green New Deal. But it's like it's 2018. He has nothing. He has nothing. Policy-wise, he has nothing. He has no conceptual analysis of anything going on. He doesn't talk about the Twitter files, doesn't talk about the censorship, really very, very minimal coverage of any foreign policy, right? I mean, the idea that he floats the assassination of Soleimani as evidence that Trump was pro-war, because that's what he does. Every time they say, well, Trump's not, people would vote, well, Trump didn't get us into any new wars. Well, he assassinated the Iranian general. Yeah, he did. Did World War III follow from that? Did war in Iran follow from that? No, it did not. I was afraid it would. I'll admit to that. I did a whole solo audio podcast that day, right? Panicking that there was going to be war with Iran. All right. And yes, it was an aggressive act. You might even call it an act of war. But one thing that was pretty clear about Donald Trump, whether it was the Soleimani move or the, dick waving, like almost literal dick waving with Kim Jong-un, or whether I have my buttons bigger than yours. New York real estate fuckface that he is, he knew exactly how far he could push these people without blowing the deal, right? Yeah. Without chaos erupting. And that's business. That's real estate. How much can you fuck the other person before they tell you to fuck off and cancel the deal? How do you get them to sign on the line but get everything you can out of them and fuck them as hard as you can? Trump had an act for that. He had an act for that. Kyle cites that over and over again. Point is, the guy is just using recycled talking points from the 2016 Bernie campaign. That's all he's capable of doing. And without a candidate to back, there's nothing driving that train. Who's going to watch that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, some people apparently. I've said it before. If Kyle got in this game today, he'd have 3 subscribers and 2 of them would be his parents. Who the fuck would watch this guy? He got in very early. The vast majority of his subscribers don't watch. If you look at his view counts, I mean, most of them, it's those subscriptions where they subscribed and forgot about it. They probably subscribed 5 years ago and 10 years ago. They don't know anymore. And he's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's all about the money. What it was, he made $2 million a year doing this. And that's part of what I don't get. You're making $2 million. I'm sure when you started, when you made your first 1,000, you thought it was a really big deal. Do you really need $2 million to live, man? Like you can't have integrity and make 1 million, 500,000. Like you can't, so maybe it'll cost you something.
Well,
it's not going to cost you everything.
About Maddow. Could she take $1 million a year doing good work? Does she need the $6 million a year?
Right.
Doing bad work? Right.
Right. Like what? How much do you need, man? I'm sure you're making more than you ever dreamed in your wildest dreams you would be making doing this. So why you have to be a fucking scumbag? Why you have to lie to that's what made me so angry about it. You have a platform like this. It's a responsibility, man. It's a responsibility. Like the people who are listening to you trust you. Right. I mean, I would hope they have independent minds. They're not just going to blindly agree with what you say. And a lot of our people don't. A lot of people disagree with certain things. We have people on the right who will often comment, hey, I don't agree with you guys on everything, but I appreciate that you're honest. We love those people. I love when I see comments like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's why I found it so offensive, man, because we're in this space and that's the code that I think we go by. And to see somebody else who's in this space, who's doing that well financially, far out ahead financially enough to have integrity, our integrity costs us a lot. I've said this before. We're not dumb guys, man. We know how you make money in this freaking business. We would sit down all day and talk about who owned who and who's yelling at who and who gossiped about who. And we would pick a lane. And if we really wanted to make money, we'd go full GOP lapdogs or full Democratic Party lapdogs so we could get money from their big money people.
Yeah, that's where the real money is, of course.
Yeah, when you can hit up Katzenberg, man, when you can get in on some of that Katzenberg money. That's the way to make money. This cat, he got in early enough that he doesn't really have to even do that kind of a compromise. He doesn't even really have to do that calculus. You hit the lottery, man. You got in at a time when it was easy enough for a boring, half-bright schmuck like you to get 1 million subscribers. God, man, like why can't you have some integrity, man? Hey, take a pay cut. You'll still be living large.
We'll see. Maybe we'll be proven wrong. Maybe in 7 years we'll be up here saying Eckhart Tolle is the only guy willing to challenge Malia Obama for the nomination. The only guy. So I don't care what his personal life is like. Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe I could afford a blazer like that we'll have the fake Stonewall in back.
Well, see, that's the thing. You got to be careful about what you buy, because what you buy, you have to maintain. And once you have to maintain, you have to have a certain. You got to keep your nuts small. That's the thing. You got to keep what you need to maintain the lifestyle that you've cultivated. You got to keep it low enough to be able to maintain your integrity.
Exactly. And I feel like that's easy. I feel like I don't need much. I don't have the itch to travel, really.
I mean that I do, but but you can do it cheaply.
Yeah,
you don't have to be first class on the Orient Express.
Right, exactly. All right, let's do some super chats before we get out of here. By the way, folks, check, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Got a big crowd in here this evening. Thank you for hanging out with us. I appreciate that very, very much, folks. Virtuoso here for $5. Thank you, sir. I see Kyle in his bleach blonde hair. It reminds me of the Stan music video by Eminem. Dear Bernie, I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. That's an old one. That's from way back. You're talking now. Good reference. Alex, this is not a super chat, but I did want to flag this because I did want to address this. You said, I mean, it's not good, but relative to every other politician, frankly, it's not that bad. She's talking about Marianne Williamson. I actually agree with you. Like, to me, and I think Russell agrees with me too. We actually talked about this before we went on. The story's really not about Marianne Williamson. It's about Kyle. It's about the incentives of corporate media being parroted in this so-called independent space.
That's it.
Right.
And she's not the interesting story.
At Kyle's level, right? What is really the difference between corporate media and independent media when you're that big on YouTube? Who advertises on YouTube? What, your local corner store? No, corporations. It's corporate advertising. That's the incentive. And Kyle doesn't live stream that often. He doesn't get the super chat donations. You know what I mean?
It's all advertising revenue.
Ad revenue. Now,
and when you get, I don't know if everybody
have a board of people breathing down his neck what he can say and what he can't, but the incentives are the same.
No, you kind of do. You kind of do. I don't, because with my other channel, I had enough subscribers. I got invited to YouTube workshops. Once you get to a certain level of subscribers, you're not just taking what they're giving. You're negotiating your own deals with companies to advertise on your show. You negotiate a higher rate. So it's not like
yourself.
It's
you
not
don't have
like
a team.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Well, it's not like what it is now, where like we don't know who the fuck advertises on here. Like,
right.
What do we know? Because sometimes people will tell us, "Do you know Daily Wire advertise on your show?" Well,
a lot of that's not catered.
Stormfront could be advertising on here. We have nothing to do with that. But once you get to a certain level, you negotiate deals with people.
Right, and you have reps and stuff do that for you. No, what I meant is that you don't have a board telling you what you can say, what you can't. You do it yourself.
Sure.
But
I'm
the
just
incentives are the
saying,
same.
at
You're
this point, he does have
dollars.
real corporate clients that he's dealing with and negotiating prices with. He does have a direct incentive. It's not like us now, like, more view counts, more money, but we're not at the point you can negotiate what you're getting per impression. He's been there for a very long time.
For a long time, right, exactly. Meteor Dreams, thank you for the $1.99. Read Woke Ouroboros by Peter Coffin. All right, interesting.
All right.
Thank you for the suggestion.
As you can tell, I'm a reader.
He's a reader, indeed. Virtuoso, Kyle got out of bed with Marianne. She said, no, let's get you.
He's clearly got a mommy thing.
Look, it is unbecoming. I mean, look, let's just say Marianne were a serious candidate, right? Aren't candidates in the press supposed to have a somewhat adversarial relationship, right? Like, should she be cheering on with the blue hearts? It's the same shit.
It's corporate media parallel universe.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Same thing, just a little smaller.
Where you can get a goofy haircut without the network coming down on you, telling you, dye your fucking hair back, you idiot.
He literally did that, I think, for Halloween and just decided to keep it.
I think he lied about having done it for Halloween because he was a little insecure about the feedback he got. That's
Yeah.
my theory, that it was never for Halloween.
Maybe. I mean, my family, we went trick-or-treating as Lion King characters. I was Timon the Meerkat for Halloween. We did our Halloween special. I did my Halloween special as Timon the Meerkat.
Oh, hang on.
Have I appeared as Timon the
super
Meerkat
chats.
since? No, I have not.
No, he is not. No, he's not.
Well, no, yesterday he did
nor
the
have I
million-
appeared as the Joker.
Yeah, right. No, well, yesterday Kyle did the 1 million subscriber live stream, so that could have been when Colin did this.
Oh, I see.
But thank you for the super chat, Colin. Sorry, I lost track of where I was at. Russell, can you scroll down and catch those other super chats for me, please, while I read this? Sorry, I got disoriented there.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling myself tonight. I feel like I'm running on fumes. All of a sudden, I feel a little tired. I don't know what's going on with me. Anyway, I'll rest up for Sunday's show. Sorry. I sent Kyle a super chat yesterday asking him why he doesn't cover Shama Sawant, and he didn't answer. Well, yeah, no, of course. Of course. Thank you, Colin. Colin's spending a lot of money trying to get people to cover Shama Sawant. Between Kyle and the Vanguard, where you're down $17 trying to get worker strike back in the news. Okay, here we go. Mousetrap. Thank you, Mousetrap. What happens to capitalism when the majority of jobs are automated? It used to seem far away, but with GPT, it's clearly coming much sooner than I thought. Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, look, I don't want to get conspiratorial. I've said this on the show before. Why would they give us universal health care, man? They need less of us. What motivation do they have to keep more of us healthy and alive?
Yeah, look, there's not going to be a market demand for people anymore. That's one of the arguments for the UBI. That's one of the arguments for the UBI is that, look, you're just not going to be able to entrust the market to govern society the way it does now.
Yeah. Do you
because
think
there's
they're
not going to
thinking...
be market demand for labor? And what happens when there is no market demand for labor? How do people get paid? Right. So what's going to happen to capitalism? Same thing that's already happened to capitalism. Right. It's already imploded. Like capitalism has already failed. Right. It's not going to fail soon. It's failing now. Right. I mean, 67,000 people a year die because they can't afford medicine. That's a failure of capitalism. That's been happening for decades in this country. As long as the country's existed, it's been happening. The numbers have, obviously correlated to the population of the country, and there have been, minor fixes here and there. Numbers go up, numbers go down. That's a failure of capitalism, right? When workers die in a tornado because they're not allowed to leave the warehouse that they're working in, that's a failure. It's already failing. This is just going to be a next incarnation of that. What happens when the white-collar workers who have been able to insulate themselves through credential programs and things like that. What happens when the robots come and take their jobs?
That's happening.
Yeah.
That's happening. Well, that's why you're seeing as, a lot of the people who were told to learn to code are taking great pleasure in all of these people getting fired from tech companies, or, because they're very online people. They're all going on TikTok crying about how they thought they were going to be at Google forever. They were going to be at Twitter forever. They were going to be at Apple forever. And that's just the beginning of that. I mean, it's funny watching these people, and I keep meaning to do a video about this. Yeah, it's being covered much more sympathetically by the press than I've ever seen them cover people's factory closing. Right. They're very sympathetic, particularly to the Twitter people, because Elon, right? But yeah, you could see for the first time in their life, their credentials aren't doing shit for them. You know what I will say is very interesting about the way the right wing covers this, because of course they're getting a hard on over watching all of these like San Francisco libs lose their jobs. But at the same time, because their whole value is like work, I haven't seen one of them that didn't go out of their way, even as they were clearly having some schadenfreude showing these videos. I haven't seen one of them that didn't say, look, it's always bad when somebody loses their job. And, I do feel sorry for these people. It's very interesting. Like that value is so core to their identity.
Right.
That even though they hate these people with a passion, they feel a need to say that.
Right. All right. Sorry, I skipped this one by accident. But thank you, RBGH fam. Kyle got lucky that Hitchens' videos were popular when he started. He's in the same vein as Pac-Man and Cedar, fake populist shooting fish in a barrel. That's true. You know, those new atheists were the jam back then. Till like millennials, like, you know, Kyle and I are probably roughly the same age. I think he's a few years younger than me. But yeah, no, that new atheist stuff was really hot back then. The Cedar and sorry, not Cedar. Harris, because they're both Sams. Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens. Hitchens would have been great for what we do here, like just commenting on hot takes and put downs and beefs, because Hitchens could really lay a smack down when he wanted to. So missed that guy. He died too young. Died at 62.
Yeah, very young.
The booze and the liquor. But, you know, he said, look, I mean, you know, he was a brave guy. He said, look, I wouldn't have been who I was without it. And he says, you know, the reason I wrote so much, the reason I had the thoughts I had is because I would stay up all night and have that extra half a bottle, you know, and keep my brain going for that time. He said, without it, I just wouldn't have been the same. Not to say it was worth it, obviously. I don't think it was, but that's for him to decide, not us. Mescalito, we need a candidate that speaks like Trump with left economic policy. That would be a dangerous combination.
Well, we've been saying that the whole time we've had this show.
Of course.
That would be unbeatable.
Of course. All of these oligarchs are so ripe for mocking a George Carlin type. Imagine the potential. I mean, that's why Carlin was the best there ever was.
It's Trump kind of is half that, right? He's just not all that because he doesn't actually mean it.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I think Trump is not even. He's not even necessarily like a doctrinaire capitalist or a doctrinaire free market.
He's not a doctrinaire. He's a doctrinaire.
He's not a doctrinaire anything. Yeah, exactly. I think he views the status quo as inevitable because he's not an imaginative person. He's a very shallow, lazy-minded person. And so he just lacks imagination. And so it's not even, I don't feel like he even has it in him to question a certain economic system because and the reason I say that, I think the sort of evidence for that in my view is that he really does challenge a lot of that Randian free market orthodoxy without even necessarily knowing it. Like, he'll make an argument that the American government should do the bidding of its people. And I won't say interfere in the economy to do so, but certainly manage the economy proactively in a way that benefits some, right. At the expense of others. That in and of itself, you know, is out of step with the sort of Reaganomics bootstrap sink or swim, right?
Well, and that's how powerful that message is, because even though he was clearly a clown who didn't really care much about any particular issues, he won by acting like that.
Right.
Just by vaguely indicating some kind of culturally conservative economic populism, just by kind of tilting his head in that direction without really presenting any policies. That message was so powerful. And granted, his opponent was so terrible. He was able to win on that. But yeah, man, you get somebody who can really talk that talk and walk that walk, they'll be unbeatable. I mean, we've always said, if the GOP would just get fucking rational about abortion and actually start to do something for their new working class base that they stole from the Democrats, there would be Republican hegemony as far as the eye could see. You might get that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's shout out our patrons before we sign off. We got a few more minutes. If anybody has any other questions, we will keep the chat line open, but we do want to thank our patrons before we sign off. Well, we said this was going to be a short one and ended up being longer than last night's.
Yeah, I know. What happened?
Where did the time go?
What happened?
Yeah. But patreon.com/Do Dissidents. That's how you can support this show. You can also go to dodissidents.substack.com. Please find us on our alternative platforms, Rumble and Rockfin. It's important to do that. We had good viewer numbers on Rumble last night also. And follow us on Twitter @Do Dissidents. So find us all those places. We're going to be back here on Sunday with a little bit more of, I think, a policy-heavy show. I noticed one guy commented at the beginning of the show, oh, see, See, last night you were talking about, talking with Matt Taibbi about, all these, policies and concepts and ideas, and now you're doing this. That's a bad sign. I'm like, listen, got to keep the lights on, man. We can't have Matt Taibbi every night. I almost said at the beginning of the show, I said, this show is going to kind of suck compared to last night. Just,
sure.
Just
well, how could it not?
How could it not?
How could it not?
Mescalito, thanks for the $5. Just want to say I'm so happy I found you guys. I'm assuming that's what I mean. Thank you very much for saying that. That's very kind. I go back to 2007 era of BreadTube, and you guys are the best analysis I've ever heard. Well, thank you, Mescalito.
Thank you,
we
man.
appreciate
That's amazing to hear. Thank you.
It is amazing to hear. And 2007, yeah, you really are an OG in this space because I didn't even know. I don't even think I knew what YouTube was in 2007.
I don't even think I was on Facebook, man.
Yeah, I was just getting back onto Facebook because I wasn't in college anymore, and I was under the assumption that only college kids could use Facebook. Because in the beginning, you needed a college email address to sign up for Facebook. Right. Otherwise, you couldn't use it. Yeah.
I from the beginning, as soon as I took one look at social media, I got it. I knew what it was going to be. I hated it. I didn't want any part of it. But in the end, for marketing my theater, I didn't have much choice.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when we interviewed those, the United for East Palestine group, that was one of those things where I said, look, this is a tool. And like all tools, it can be wielded for ill or it can be wielded for good. And so it's good to see something else came from it, something else good besides our little bullshit show.
You only got 3 names scrolling there, 4 names.
Well, that's because that's the new scroll. I hit the character limit on the old scroll. What I'll have to do is divide them more evenly so that it's not awkward.
Yeah, so it's not weird, right?
Yeah. Or the other solution is we can get some new patron signups, and I'll be able to populate that second scroll. What do you think about that? That'll make my life a lot easier. So go to patreon.com/DoDissidents or DoDissidents.substack.com. All right, is that everything we got for today? Did anything else come in here? Anybody else going once, going twice? All right. Well, we want to thank Virtuoso and Taya for calling in. Patreon subscribers get call-in access and bonus video content. We're going to be recording some of that bonus video content over the weekend. That'll be dropping within the next couple of days. And obviously, we are making our feature documentary on Jose Vega's activism. And so we're going to create perks for the patrons so they can be especially involved in the making of that film as well. All right, that's everything, is it not, sir?
That is everything.
That's
a show.
That's a show. It's more than I bargained for. I didn't think this one was going to run that long.
This one was a really big show.
It's a really big show. Yeah, exactly. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. We will see you back here on Sunday. Please hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button on the way out. Do us a favor. Please subscribe to this channel. We got to get to 1 million subscribers. We got to get to 1 million. Get us to 1 million.
We got to find a candidate.
Yeah, we have to find a candidate.
We I'm telling you, I keep saying, man, we got to pull a Pat Paulson and run you.
I was just going to say, not me, although I am old enough. We can run Extra Bulla. What about Extra Bulla? You want to run for president,
Extra Bulla
Warren?
for president, yeah.
I think you'd be a great.
He'll
I
be
think
our
you'd be a good
candidate.
president. Not
What's
only
that?
would it be fun campaign, but I think you'd actually be a good president.
I mean, the good thing about having Joe Biden is, I mean, anybody looks good by comparison, right? Like, what are you going to do worse?
Right. No, it wouldn't be any worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. Extra Bulla doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would throw a phone at a person.
No, probably not. Or
No.
scream at cancer and AIDS patients. Probably not.
Don't fuck with me.
You wouldn't do that, would you?
The Marianne Williamson story.
Yeah, don't worry. But I got the bowl ready, Cricket. Don't
The Lifetime movie, the Lifetime biopic of Marianne Williamson.
Okay, we have got to find somebody who can do a Marianne Williamson and shoot that sketch.
Don't fuck with me yet.
Like an advertisement for her next book. Don't fuck with me.
That would be funny. All right, everybody. Thanks very much. We'll see you Sunday night, 7 o'clock. Be safe. Be well. We'll see you guys next time.
Courage.
Please clap.